So today we're joined by my good friend and sort of boss slash coworker, partner,
collaborators.
Yeah, collaborators. So John Vondracek is here today joining us in this brand new podcast, A Massive Creativity. This is going to be either the second or the third episode. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I think it's pretty cool because I'm going to hear a lot of things that like you and I don't necessarily delve that deeply into all the time. Especially when I started asking you about your background and your education and your history, your life story a little bit, because, you and I are usually just business, like, let's just get right down to, client work and let's get it done. So I think I'm going to learn a lot today about your backstory and who you are and how you got to be where you're at today. And everybody else is joining along for the ride too. So one thought I will say before we get started is like, I just have this feeling and we'll see how it plays out in the conversation. But I feel like, because you and I are very sort of similarly aged, I think. Like we're relatively the same age. But I feel like you and I are very different people. I think in some ways, like I think we both have a dark sense of humor. I think we're both kind of jaded a lot. We're both kind of these snarky, bitter kind of people. But in other ways, we'll see how the conversation goes. But I feel like
I'm not bitter. I'm sarcastic. You know what I mean? I'm acidic. You know what I mean? But I'm incredibly optimistic.
Acidic. Okay.
Yeah,
oh, really? Okay.
Sarcastic and acidic. But yeah, I'm a very optimistic person. I believe in people and art. And
okay, cool. Because like what I was going to say is,
at the end of the day,
my impression of you is that like you're very sort of a old school kind of guy, at least compared to me.
Oh yeah.
And that's where I want to kind of get into, like, because I know you went to school and you actually studied art design, all this kind of stuff, motion. I did not. So we were actually joking before we started recording about engineers and engineering. And I'm not sure if you knew this about me, but I actually have a degree in engineering.
That's why I was telling you that.
Really? Okay.
Exactly,
So you did know. Okay. So you were poking fun.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. I certainly would not take any offense because I totally get what you're talking about. And we joke around in my family that my mom is really more the engineer of the family in the sense that she can figure anything out. Whereas me, I am a designer. Like through and through. I care about form and function. I care about aesthetics, art, beauty, the experience, like of whatever it is, like TV, remote control design, website interfaces, commercials, cinema, opening titles, like all of it. Like that's what I love and care about. So I definitely classify myself as more of a,
is that you're a capital D designer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and not just for graphics and emotion, but just in the world, that things are nicely designed or efficiently and intelligently designed. You have always struck me as somebody with a high appreciation for that.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. I take that as a compliment. Because like, to me, design is a way of life. And I think that's sort of a lot of the messaging that I'm doing, not just for this podcast, but the channel is like, I'm sort of trying to democratize it a bit and get people thinking more about good design, aesthetics, like creativity in general. But all that being said, this is sort of just the foundations of the podcast and the channel. But yeah, I'm curious to hear, because I tend to think of you more of this old school traditional kind of guy, and I'm kind of more like winging it, in my own way. But I want to hear the story to either confirm my suspicions about that, or because we talked about AI a little bit before we started here, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about AI. We're definitely going to get into that today. That you're not necessarily the Abe Simpson curmudgeoning, like, I know new technology bad.
Old man yells at cloud. Exactly. Like I'm not yelling at the cloud. But and we'll get into this with my background a little bit. But the way I came about, teaching, and Cooper Union, and things like that. But I viewed people in our position, you and I, at our age, at our position in our career, as a last line of defense for incoming young people who are coming into an industry, and I feel like in lieu of any kind of unions or anything like that, we're the elder statesmen of an industry that wants to eat them alive for free, and so I constantly, for 20 years, I've been asked, well, I know we can't afford string theory for this. Maybe one of your students. And I'm like, no. My students are not yours for a giant corporation to pillage for free work. You know what I mean? I will give them every opportunity I can. I will hire them. I'll give them internships, give them paid jobs. I was like, but my students are not your resource for free work. And this has been a 20-year fight. I mean, I've held the line at this, and so with the advent of AI and then everybody doing anything that they want, it's not helping you and I and students, get into an industry. It's helping rich know-nothings bypass all of us and get what they need for free. And I'm not sure that's, you know what I mean? I'm not sure that's
Yeah.
what I.
It's not good for most everybody.
Yes, right. I have a history of having to defend and shield and buffer my students from exploitative free work. So there's a long history of this, way
Right.
before
Even
AI,
before AI, right.
way before AI,
Yeah.
decades before AI. So that's a lot of where my point of view is coming from here is, hold the line, protect the artist,
Right.
protect the
Okay.
creative world, you know what I mean? So anyway, but I'm not anti-AI. We should be clear. It's I eye-popping and dazzling, you know what I mean? But I would like it to be used for
Yeah.
creative endeavors
Totally. Yeah.
with
So
creative people.
we'll definitely come back. I think that'll be a big
Yeah,
chunk
yeah,
of our
yeah.
conversation today. But let's
Sure.
start out with. I was curious about, again, these are things that I don't really know your background
Yeah,
in that sense. I
that's
mean, we've been
funny to
working
hear.
together
I
for
just thought,
like,
I
I mean,
know.
we've been working together for like what, 15 years or so?
Yeah, I think maybe
Yeah.
longer. I mean,
Yeah. And yet, like, I mean, all I know is like you're from Maryland. Like,
yeah,
but
born and
other than
raised.
that, like, I don't know what your childhood was like. So I was kind of curious, like, because I have my own sort of unique origin story,
You
not
do,
to get
yeah.
all a marvel about it. I'm curious
Yeah,
about
yeah.
your origin story. Like, did you always see yourself as like a creative person, or did you feel like a designer and sort of like what it like, or how did you end up becoming this creative professional sort of from day one? If you can kind of,
I'm very, very fortunate. Love painting. I mean, at a very young age. And it was never, ever in anybody's doubt that I was going to be an artist. Now, I had my grandfather, who was like my favorite person on earth, and I lived at their house for a while. And even when I didn't, I kind of lived there anyway. I mean, I was always there. My best friends lived next door. My grandfather had a one-man like advertising company, Walt Smith Advertising, just in the basement. And he did the local car ads in like the Baltimore newspapers. So, 9.99, 7.99, those packed in ads with a million little black and whites of pickup trucks and stuff. And so I saw like camera ready art. I saw when they would get photos of the trucks. I saw when they would transfer them to black and white bitmap, for illustration purposes for a newspaper, and I saw how they did markup with acetate and a clear and vellum and tracing paper. I saw how they would pencil in excites and numbers and letters. And also, I look back on this now, he had a stopwatch, which I have right on my shelf right over there, a little stopwatch where he would have to time out scripts for like radio, you know? And so I was this little kid, I mean, 4, 6 years old. And I used to sit on his knee and trace the letters and numbers and trace the trucks and kind of was there the whole time while he was on the phone calls and all. So you look back on that now and you're like, it's pretty obvious where I was going to be and the fact that I already drew and stuff like that. So I went to high school. I went to Calvert Hall in Maryland, which is a really like high-end, private, sort of elite high school, not public school. It was not cheap. My parents sacrificed a lot, for me to go there. And I went there because it had like the region's like top art teacher, Victor Januszewski. And so it was almost like artistic boot camp.
so did your
It's like the
parents knew that
Marines.
you were interested in the art and creative stuff, and they really encouraged it. They really
Yes.
set
And
you
they
on that path.
they never really fully understood it, but they always supported it. Absolutely. And Calvert Hall was extremely high level academics and all too. So, I was expected to get straight A's and everything. I had to stay. I couldn't just be, a stoner painter in the art room. You know what I mean? Like I was expected to perform if I was going to go to Calvert Hall. But the reward was that I got this art program. So,
Did
Calvert
you
Hall was great.
specialize in anything in particular, like during that
Not in
time?
high school, but I mean, me personally, yes, I focused on the art, but no, it was a general high school. It wasn't like nowadays they have magnet schools and things like that. This wasn't anything like that. So, our art teacher every year, Mr. J, would encourage us to, apply for Cooper Union because at the time it was tuition free, it's full scholarship, and everybody would apply, nobody would get in. Everybody would apply, nobody would get in. And out of the 30 some years he'd been teaching there, 9 people had gotten in from his group, but he made everybody pretty much apply. And he says one of the best art schools in the country, and it's free if you get it. And so that was sort of like this, Mount Olympus kind of goal that you weren't expected to get in, but you were expected to want to and try. And, in my AP art class senior year, I mean, I was out of the 6 kids in my class, I was probably the 4th best. I was not the best in any way. We all applied to Cooper Union, and for whatever reason, I got in. Now, I had a really good interview at the portfolio review. So I think that did a lot to have somebody advocate for me, in the school. Yeah, no, I got in. And, my whole life changed. So I moved to New York City and went to Cooper Union and kind of, I just devoured it. Now, that's sort of fortune number one, that I had this supportive family that could water me and give me
Yeah.
sunlight to grow in that direction.
I didn't have that.
Yeah, a lot of people do not. Exactly. Most people do not. Now, I have there's some conflict in there. My father, my birth father, he put up a fuss about me moving to New York and being an artist or whatever, but, we came to terms. But once I got to Cooper, sort of fortune number two kicked in. And this was this, well, I viewed it as like the Wonka ticket, right? It's like my golden ticket. It's like if I didn't get into Cooper Union, I'd be fixing air conditioners in Baltimore. So here I moved to New York. I'm eating ramen noodles and Kraft macaroni and cheese. I'm broke ass, but I'm doing it. While I was in school from 94 to 98, like around 96, 97, that's when the dot-com boom hit.
Yep.
So people 1, 2 years older than me, who were still my friends, in design, they were starting companies. They had Ferraris. They were that peak of web before the dot-com boom.
Yeah.
And I was just under it. So I was there to learn from it, there to participate in it, but not there to get the Ferrari,
Yeah.
right? And so I still had nothing to lose. I still had that chip on my shoulder, poor kid from Baltimore attitude. And then one of my teachers at Cooper Union was Lou Dorfman. So he was the creative director of CBS television for like 45 years. Extremely famous. There's books about him, and he was amazing. He was in his mid 80s teaching there. And he became a mentor. He kind of took me under his wing. I was showing him some of the websites that I was doing because I was at that age where big famous designers at big famous design studios didn't know how to do websites. So they had to hire 20-year-olds like me. And so I got to work on Metallica's first website, The Cure's first website, Homicide: Life on the Streets. It was all under another company. I was an intern and then a designer. So I got this incredible portfolio experience at an unnaturally young age. And when Lou wanted to see my portfolio and talk to me about, graduating and everything, I showed him, and he's like, "What are you doing with these websites?" He was in his 80s. He had never used a mouse, right? Much less, I'm not joking. When I showed him, he picked up the mouse with his hand and was like, "Okay, now what? Do I point it?" I'm like, "No, Lou, we
Oh,
put that
wow.
on the ground and we roll it." So he didn't know how to use a mouse.
Wow.
And he said, "What are you doing with these crappy websites? You got to be in television." And I said, "Lou, I'm graduating in 3 months. I have no classes in television. How would I get a job in television? I've been doing web for years here." And he's like, "Hello, creative director, CBS television, 45 years." And I was like, "Oh, were you going to get me a job, Lou?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so this is like sort of fortune number three. So I had this portfolio from the web. I had this mentor in television. He got me an interview, first edition editorial and Splash Design. It was owned by Bobby Smallheiser, and they were like a titan of the commercial world in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I mean, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. They had 7 floors. They probably had 10 edit rooms. And this is back when each edit room cost $1 million worth of gear. It was beautiful. It was palatial. And I went in for my interview. The post industry that we all work in, fancy offices, people not wearing shoes, everybody's in jeans and relaxed. And I showed up in my suit, right? And so I had the interview. They said, well, we really love your design, but we need After Effects, we need television and animation. Do you know how to do that? And I totally lied. I mean, I just bald-faced lied right to their face. And I just said, well, I said, I've opened After Effects a little bit, done a couple things in class, nothing very good. I was like, but I feel like I could learn it, no problem. And they went, okay, we'll think about it. And they called me in for a second interview. And when I went in again, I was like, what do I wear? I already wore my one suit and my one tie. And I was like, and they kind of made fun of me for it. And I was like, but if I go in again and I'm wearing jeans, that might be disrespectful. So I put the suit on again. This is like, May, it's hot. And they walked in, they were like, the guy went, again with the suit, And so they looked at my work and they said, listen, we really like your stuff. We don't know about your After Effects skills. We don't even know if you'll even like it. And they said, would you want to just give it a try? We'll do this little temporary short-term thing. You'll test it, we'll test you. I said, great. And they said, you want to start on Monday? And I was like, and I left that interview, let's call it, I think it was like a Thursday. And I left on Thursday and I went to Barnes& and Noble around the corner, bought like the Adobe Classroom in a book.
Classroom in a book.
The white one with the disc.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I went back to my apartment in Brooklyn and I read that book and did along with the disc like 6 times over the whole weekend. And when I came in, I mean, I was no expert in any way, but at least I had that under my belt, The rest was history. I mean, I just sort of took to it and I brought at the time, you sort of had like the Inferno rooms, which were $1 million. You had like the CGI, uh, which was like $1 million. And then like you had like the Mac station. And the Mac station was like frowned upon, and it was like that was just cutting mats and separating logos with alpha channels for like the bigger rooms. And that's what I was doing. I was in support of the 2 big billable rooms. But while I'm there, I'm designing and I'm animating and I'm doing After Effects, and clients would come by and the owner would come by and they would like look over my shoulder and they'd be like, well, damn. I mean, that looks like what we're doing in that room, but that costs $1 million. And I'm like, yeah, I can do pretty much anything that room can do. I was like, it's slower, had to render. And I mean, it just, next thing you know, they wrote little articles about me, because they were engineering sort of technicians running that gear. Designers worked at agencies, maybe prepping the art way beforehand. So the design and the execution were completely different parts of the process. And like the Macintosh, this is why I'm not anti-AI fully, is the Macintosh democratized this and it brought it all together to where, 22-year-olds like me could do it. And it was revelatory. And this is like about the same time that like, Kyle Cooper and the 7 titles were coming out. So that was like
Mm-hmm.
taking the design world by storm. Graphic design was becoming this thing that could be on moving screens. And so I was just kind of at the right age and had the right spirit. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I worked my ass off, but there were a couple fortunate things. And then while I was at Splash and graduating, I don't know, 5 months later, the dot-com boom collapsed. Everybody lost everything. And I was in television and I dodged the bullet. So that's how I got into it. And I've been going ever since. Been very fortunate. I've had powerful people looking out for me and helping me up. And that's why even with teaching, I try and help others up.
Cool. All of that is
Now,
brand new news to me. I did not know
that's
any of
funny,
that.
eh? That's funny because we've known each other for so long. I just presume. Now, I will tell you a funny anecdote that gets me into how I was teaching because it's all
Yeah, I
the
was
same
curious how you
time.
got started teaching specifically. Yeah.
Right. So, like, all my teachers were famous, I mean, there's this famous designers. And I was up on a stool with a staple gun, and I was like putting my senior show up, like stapling to the wall. And Margaret Morton, the head of the design department, and the dean of the School of Art were behind me, kind of below and behind me. I had like probably screws in my mouth, or something, just kind of, and they were looking at all my work, student work, but I also had a lot of work from animation, and I had Burger King commercials, and things like that. And they were like, where did you do Burger King commercials? I was like, well, yeah, I got a job. They said, how? how did you learn? I said, well, I got the job and I went to the corner and bought a book, I've been learning from my coworkers, they're teaching me. And they said, we've been wanting to offer workshops in this. Do you know anybody who could teach them? And I was like, honest to God, I'm like, I really don't. I'm like, I don't really. I mean, I have the people I work with, they're not going to want to teach a workshop. And I'm still just stapling. And it was like pregnant pause. And they went, do you want to teach workshops in it? And I turned around because I kept thinking, like, all my teachers were famous. Don't you have to be like accredited to teach at a college? Like, isn't there some sort of accreditation? Like, I'm literally just graduating. I will only be a couple months older than the people I'll be teaching. And it didn't feel right. And they were like, oh, it's just workshops. It's not really a class. It's just weekend workshops. And I was broke. And they were like, well, we'll pay you. Okay. So I did it and they sold out. And I did another weekend and they sold out. And I did another weekend and then they doubled them and they sold out. So it was just taking off like wildfire. There was a desire for people to learn this. So then they were like, well.
And it was specifically just like animation and After Effects, or?
Yep, After Effects. Yep. Truly just After Effects, what keyframes are, how the timeline works, how to move art, how to prep things in Photoshop and then bring them to life. Just workshops. So then they were like, well, we really want to offer this as a class. And again, same thing. I was just like, okay, well, good luck. And they were like, well, we got Emily Oberman, so she's a very famous graphic designer, one of the principals of Number 17, and now she's a partner at Pentagram. So I'm sure you know Pentagram. So Emily's a pillar of the design community in New York. And they said, well, we got Emily to teach it. And she was, older than me. And they said, but, she wanted a teacher's aide, a technical assistant, to teach the After Effects of it. And we thought you'd like to do it. I'm like, absolutely. Oh my God. If I get to like be in the same room as Emily Oberman once a week, this is going to be good for me. This is going to be amazing. And so we co-taught the class. It took off like wildfire. Did it for a couple of years. And we hit it off like peanut butter and jelly, Emily and I.
So this was like early 2000s, I guess?
Yeah, this would be in the late 90s. And this would be 98, 99, 2000. Actually, yeah, this went through.
Well, this was after you graduated, right?
I graduated in 98, but I started teaching workshops right in 98. Classes were probably in 99. So yeah, I know this was 2001 because I remember sharing my 9/11 story at the time with Emily in the class. So this would have been 2001. Then Emily had twins. And so she moved to New Jersey, had twins. There was no way she was keeping a class. And the school had asked her, well, who would you recommend to take the class over? And she like shook them by the shoulders. She went like kind of Flintstones like. She went like, what is wrong with you? John, he's great. He teaches the class anyway. I don't, you don't need somebody else, John. And so again, like sort of fortune number 4. So I just took over the class and I've been doing that since.
It's funny listening because it's like when you just sum it up, it sounds like such a charmed life. Like just
it is. It's like a charmed life. It's very difficult for me to tell people and students because people say, well, and I remember my teachers too. I remember saying, well, I don't understand how I can get there from here. Like one of my teachers was Paul Rand, like the greatest graphic designer in the history of graphic design. But I remember, he was 82 years old. I remember being 19, 20, 21 with him. And I remember thinking, well, how can I get there from here? I can't. I see no dotted line. And when I was nervous about teaching this class on my own or thinking that I had imposter syndrome or that I wasn't qualified, I had to remind myself.
It's funny getting imposter syndrome because you're not Paul Rand.
Well, thank you.
That's a pretty high bar. Yeah, it's a pretty high bar.
Pretty high bar. And so I had to remind myself, well, then what we as students got from somebody like Paul Rand is going to be different than what students are going to get from somebody like me. And what they're going to get from me is a dotted line where they can say, I can get there from here, So I'm approachable. I'm no different or better than them.
The everyman.
Here's what I did. Yes, but here's what I did. And I'm doing some cool fucking things for really interesting clients and getting acclaim. And I'm like, you guys can do this, And so I thought early on in teaching, I thought that was a real benefit. It was like one thing that I really brought to it that I think was different than the other classes at Cooper.
Yeah. I'm glad you finally stepped into that. I'm assuming you're over the imposter syndrome by now and you just eventually grew out of it and you're just like, yeah, this is who I am. This is what I do. It feels
It's true. It's more
natural.
second nature now. I have it more down to a rhythm, biorhythm, especially
Hmm.
teaching. I mean, I have anxiety. I constantly,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm never going to shake full-blown imposter syndrome. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's baked into my DNA. I
Yeah.
see so much good work out there, and I'm so mad that I didn't do it, but then I
Yeah.
realize that other people see my work and think the same.
Yeah. 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 It's all relative, you know?
It is.
It's like
It is.
I don't have a famous quote off the top of my head, but like I like to think about like your competition should be with yourself. Like you should be competing with who you were yesterday, you know?
Right.
Like,
I mean, that's what
you
athletes
know,
do, right?
yeah, I mean, just be the
Yeah.
best version of yourself and move forward. Because, you know, comparison is the thief of all joy. That is a
Right.
quote, you know.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of misery in my past and yours and probably a lot of people where if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people and you feel like you never measure up, I mean, that's
Yes.
a recipe for misery.
I
Yeah.
have a little bit of like, I mean, I certainly have vanity, right? And I'm not a big gambler. I'm very risk averse in general, like my personality, but I'll always bet on me. And I don't know where that came from. My ex, you know her, Alicia, was foundational in like supporting that, watering that in me. You should always be like, John, anybody else on earth, I would say, do A. That's the safe bet. She goes, but you're the only person I've ever met who I would say, no, no, you have to do big. B is the way to go. Only you. And I've just kind of always had that, like, when the chips are down, when things are failing, or when I'm nervous or something didn't go according to plan, I find it very hard to bet on other people, but I'll always bet on me. If it takes me working harder to get through something, it takes
Yeah.
me trying to solve something, or if there's like the safe road or this thing that could yield something really good, but it comes down to if I get it or not, I'll bet on me. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's good advice for your listeners or not. I hope it is.
Well, it
I mean,
sounds like you believed in yourself and you were
and I'm not
blessed
delusional.
to right, but
Yeah, yeah. Like,
you were blessed or lucky enough to have a partner who was very supportive of you for a time when you were married, you know, and that's a blessing, a luxury, or whatever. Like, because like I
and
think
at
for
a young age,
myself, sure, like in your
in
30s,
my
20s, and 30s, you
early
know,
20s. Yeah.
yeah, because I think for me and a lot of people, well, my story is unique. I don't know how I'm going to ever tell my full story. Like, I don't see myself doing a solo episode where I just tell my story, but like,
No, you need somebody like me to interview you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I need to be on somebody else's
Give us
podcast.
give us the clip notes. Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
on
So,
yours. But just say, well, I'll interview you. Tell me where you were going with that. Finish that thought.
so there's a lot of little elements, and I'm not going to get into the full thing since you're the guest. But I think for me, with my upbringing, which is different than yours, extremely different than yours, being first generation Indian American, I assume you're familiar with this, but Indian parents who come to America or Indian parents, they want their child to be a doctor or an
Doctor.
engineer,
Yeah, yeah.
or
Maybe
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 settle
a
for
lawyer.
being a lawyer. Yeah.
Right, right. But they have to sit
So,
at the end of the table at
yeah,
Thanksgiving.
yeah, yeah. And if you're not any of that, it's like
Oh, it's crushing
they they
disappointment.
they failed as parents and you're a
Yeah.
disappointment or whatever. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, that's where I come from. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
upbringing I come from. So I made it through everything in life to where I'm at today, but it is a little bit of sort of it's like I believed in myself
Yes.
and I worked my ass off all the whole way. And I think I do have a natural talent. Like I have a good eye.
Without question.
Like a lot of, I remembered because I was in the similar timeline as you, just a year off, like
Mm-hmm.
the .com boom and all that. And I remember I graduated in 99 and, entering into 2000, like my career started off with a bang, kind of like you. Like I was like working
Mm-hmm.
at an ad agency. I was working for Legis Delaney in San Francisco. I
Didn't
was
you work
working
at
on
RGA as well?
I did work at RGA when I moved to New York. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I was working on Adidas soccer websites like my
Right.
first year
Right.
after working. And I'm like, this is amazing,
Right.
And then the
It's
.com
so
bust.
easy.
Well, yeah. And then 2001 came and it all
Mm-hmm.
just crumbled and it was so
Mm-hmm.
hard. I left San Francisco. I wanted to move to New York, but 9/11 happened. So I waited till 2002 and then I finally came
Mm-hmm.
up here and then I started at RGA and all this stuff. Back to instead of getting all to the nitty gritty of my whole story, the point I wanted to make here was just that there was a lot of doubt along the way, and it didn't have necessarily to do with my talents or abilities or work ethic, but just
Mm-hmm.
I had that lack of support. Like I didn't have the emotional support. I didn't have people in my corner. And that's why I say it's very important, but it's also somewhat of a luxury because a lot of people don't have that.
Right. You need
But
to
I
be able to do
still
it
want to
without that.
encourage people like myself, like just to do it if your heart is really,
But you have to. You have to be
into it.
compelled to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like my art teacher from high school said, don't do this for praise and don't do this because you think you should. Do this because you're compelled to. Do this because you must.
Yes.
That there be no other way to live your life except for
Yeah.
doing this. Right? And if
Yeah.
you feel that way, then you can always bet on yourself. Look, my father, I love him dearly. I don't mean to like trash on my father. I grew, I only saw him on Sundays. We had a very good relationship, but I saw him once a week. He was always a little aloof and whatever, but he's a completely different person than I am. I love him dearly. He loves me dearly. So none of this is that. But at the time, you can bristle when you're a teenager and dad. And, he was supposed to have paid for my college. That was the child support agreement. He barely paid any child support
Wasn't
for
it
18
tuition
years.
free or all of it with Cooper Union? They didn't charge, right?
You found the punchline here exactly because so if I had gone to University of Maryland, if I had gone to any other college, he would have had to pay. But I got into Cooper Union. It was free. The only thing we were asking for was $5,000 a year for a room and board. That was for the dorm and a meal plan. That's the only two things we asked for. Actually, it may have been $5,000 a semester. It may have been $10,000 for the year, in fairness. But I believe I took a $5,000 student loan out. So I think I was still only asking for about $6,000. And he said no. And we came to blows. We're screaming at each other. Everyone's crying, and I told him, I was like, listen, you're contractually obligated by a court to pay this. And I was like, and if I have to go to a court to recoup this, I'm not going to get $5,000 from you. I'm going to look back at the terms of your child support for 18 years, and I'm going to see if a judge can rectify that number a little bit. Think about it. Do you want to lose your son and go to court? You're going to lose. And my stepmom beat his ass into shape and said, John, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I went. I got it. He gave in, but it was difficult, and so I can imagine. I mean, I had a very supportive mother. There's only so much you can do, you know,
Yeah.
with her
Like my
earnings and
mom,
stuff.
I'm really
You
close
know,
with my mom and
me too.
she's supportive, but at the same time, there was still the fact of they didn't understand any of this.
Absolutely.
So like they're immigrants coming here, like, so
I have a very funny not understanding story. You will like this. So my father, this is years later. I graduate from Cooper Union. I start my first company. We're doing Super Bowl commercials. I mean, we're making money hand over fist. My dad knows I'm successful, but he doesn't understand it at all. And so because he doesn't understand it, he doesn't even acknowledge it. Just like la 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 la, right? And so he's sitting in Maryland and he's watching University of Maryland college basketball, the Terps, right? And they go to the finals and they hadn't, or whatever, maybe semifinals, or they go to some sort of championship and they hadn't been there in decades. And my dad's going nuts watching this game, right? I'm in New York. I mean, I don't even know. I hear all this secondhand after the fact, right? But at halftime, was it Greg Gumbel or Bryant Gumbel? I think Greg Gumbel.
Ray Gumbel does sports more than
Yeah.
Bryant Gumbel. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Greg Gumbel. He comes on at halftime and he said, they do little featurettes, that don't have anything to do with the two schools in college. And he said, oh, while we have the break and halftime, he said, I'm going to take you to New York City for this really great special interest story. We have a tiny school in New York that's as elite to get into as Harvard or Yale. And it's for 190 some years, it's been free to go. And my dad kind of like listened and leaned in. And Gumbel was doing this little featurette because their like JV like or varsity basketball team had been undefeated for 3 years for whatever reason. Now they're just playing other art schools. I mean, this isn't in any sort of NCAA anything, right?
It's like
But still,
Division 9 or something, like
yeah, it's
just for
maybe
like,
lower,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But undefeated is undefeated. You know what I mean? And still, it's a story. It's just something interesting. And it was a special interest piece to focus on Cooper Union and what the silly little team was doing at Cooper Union. My dad, and he goes, and it's this little school you've probably never heard of. My dad's leaning in and says, Cooper Union. And oh my God, when he heard Greg Gumbel talk about Cooper Union and say that it was the best school, for whatever, rivals Harvard, all of a sudden, all these things I've been saying for years and telling him and showing him articles and all this stuff, once he heard Gumbel say it, well, then, oh my God, he called his friends. He put in a VCR tape and hit
He
record.
was finally proud.
Right, all of a sudden, because Gumbel did a feature on Johnny's school. That's that school he teaches at now. Like, it all opened up. So you never know. Like, even when your parents don't approve or understand it, you never know what could click, to help them understand that.
Yeah.
Maybe not with
I still wouldn't put that in the category of really truly getting it, but
I know he did. He'd still look
it's more like, and then we'll save this for the bonus content. We can go off about our fathers then.
He started being
but,
proud of it. You know what I mean? He started bragging about it to
Huh.
others. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my dad has done similar stuff, but we're we'll table this. We'll table this for
to any viewers who happen to see this. This is obviously B-roll. This isn't making the final broadcast.
Yeah. But
This is the
let's
podcast
see.
where we trash our dads.
Right. Only in the bonus content. Only in the bonus content. Oh, well, thanks for sharing all that. So we kind of went through your upbringing and getting into school and sort of how your career got started. Can you walk us through sort of a next chapter of like, because you started your own,
right? That's the next big lucky charm. So
you started the string theory.
No.
But before that, there was a lot of drama. I remember hearing bits and pieces of it.
No. We're gonna go earlier than that. This is right when I'm putting up my senior show. This is right when I'm starting to teach. I'm fresh out of school. I'm working at Splash Design, which was under First Edition Editorial. I was the little nobody there. I was the Mac guy, but I started getting acclaim. And at the same time, Bobby Smallheiser, the owner of the company, he had a partner, Randy Illoway, I believe his name was. And I mean, this company had been a titan for 35 years, but he and Randy decided to split. Randy left the company, got bought out, and the company was suffering, right? So a lot of times a big company like that can't sustain. The industry was changing, finances were all changing, the world was changing, and this giant megalith of a company started taking on water. And I was still rising within it, but a big editor at the time, Royce Graham, he was like one of their biggest editors. He billed millions of dollars a year. He was Super Bowl spots and winning advertising awards and everything. He was about 12 years older than me. And he and I worked really well together. A lot of his clients liked Royce was very smart. Royce saw the graphics were kind of the future of editorial. He saw it going that direction. So he had given notice that he was going to be going to Red Car in Dallas. He had moved his family to edit. I had given notice, and I was going to be going to Nickelodeon to be like a design director for a new department called Nick Digital. And because the company was sinking, we didn't want to just leave. Royce was their biggest biller, and I was their most profitable employee because I cost nothing and I generated a lot of work. Royce and I each gave them 1 month notice. So I gave them 4 weeks to brace for losing us, to train a replacement, and things like that. And over the course of those 4 weeks, one of Royce's large clients from like Saatchi brought to him a print campaign. It wasn't even animation. And like we were his team. This guy's name was Carl. And we were Carl's guys. We'd go out for beers and everything. Carl loved working with Royce and John. And he said, hey, listen, guys, I have these print campaign for Tylenol Cold. It's 14 commissioned outdoor, bus shelters and 14 commissioned illustrations to then be formatted like 50 different ways, right? And we were like, well, Carl, we're leaving, right? He's like, yeah, but you guys got a month. You can do this. And we're like, no, we're leaving like soon, And Royce is like, I moved my family to Texas. And he's like, well, it's mostly John anyway. It's all illustration and design. It doesn't even involve you, Royce, because I'm just bringing it to you because you're my contact. I really want to work with the two of you. And we were like, well, we don't even know what to charge for like a print campaign. And he goes, well, John did for me a Dreft baby detergent print ad. He goes, so why don't you ask Splash, go through the billing, ask, the receptionist who ran billing, ask if you can get the final budget, what was billed for that. He goes, because that was one, and we need 14. So just whatever bill that is, multiply by 14, and you probably got the job. And that bill was $14,000. And so then we had to multiply that by 14, and then we got awarded it. And Royce and I just looked at each other like we did the Bugs Bunny like Twitch. We're like, what are we gonna do? This is $100 and some thousand. What are we gonna do? And so I went to Jason, who Jason, my 3D colleague,
I
Jason
don't know if
Strico.
I don't know if I ever actually met him, but you referred
must
to
have.
him.
And you've worked on projects where we've all worked together, I'm sure, because I've known Jason for this long. And so anyway, Jason was the one bringing me into Nickelodeon. So I went to his office, I closed the door, and we're dear friends, you know what I mean? And shut the door. I'm like, oh my God, Jason, you're never gonna believe it. You're never gonna believe it. I got this job, and it's like the end of the world. All this money. It's one last jewel heist. This is like what you see in the movies, right? We're just gonna make $1 billion and ride off. And he goes, John, be cool. He's like, take a month off. It's fine. He goes, it was let's like September, October. He's like, take the rest of the year off. Start the job at Nickelodeon January 3rd. Enjoy your holidays, treat your mom to a nice present, make your money, and then start here in January. No problem, man. I'm proud of you. And over the course of that month or two, with that one big job, we got like 3 other jobs of that scale. So by the end of that year, in 3 months, we had put together almost $1 million. And Royce and I were like,
Around what year was that?
this would have been 99. And this is the year after I graduated. And so we were like, and so Royce, he was used to sort of billing all that money, but he never got it. That went to First Edition, and he just got a paycheck, and he probably got a commission. But this is all going to him and I. And we were just like, and all it took was one edit room and one Macintosh. And we were like kids in a candy store. I mean, we felt like we were cheating something. We were like,
Yeah.
how is this legal?
Right. Well, it's crazy when you think about it. Sometimes I think about this, like in the industry we work in, at whatever point in my career, sometimes I think about all of the money that's out there.
Right.
And it's just insane to think about it. And then you start realizing where you're at on the totem pole. It like sometimes I feel like I'm just at the bottom, just getting little leftovers. But like
I am just under the lid of the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
I'm just living under there in that little crevice.
But it's just insane to think about all the
especially
money
in the
flowing.
90s and early 2000s, No, and so he had already moved his family. We were like, oh shit. So we tried to kind of do it remotely where he was down in Texas. We rented space out of Splash Design. We rented my old office out because we just needed a place to do the work, which I'm sure was a big insult to Bobby and the team that were there to see their star employees leave and then come back and rent their empty space. Like I'm sure that was a bitter pill to swallow in hindsight. So we did that. We ended up getting our own space. We moved out. We started a company called Just Two Guys.
Oh, that was the name of the company, Just Two Guys.
Mm-hmm. Just Two Guys. And we were like the Beatles, man. I mean, it was unbelievable. And now he was like 12 years older than me, Royce was, and he was completely different than me in most ways. I mean, he was staunch conservative, and I'm clearly militant left, and all this other stuff. So, he was not very beloved in the industry. Most people could not believe. They were like, John, how are you partnering with Royce? He's going to chew you up and spit you out. I'm like, I don't know. We worked pretty well together, and we did. We worked really well together, but we were at different points in our life. He was going through his 3rd divorce, and he more and more difficult to deal with. And from his point of view, I'm sure he was looking at, why am I splitting half the fortune with a 22-year-old? Meanwhile, the 22-year-old was doing it all day, every day while he was in Texas. He'd call me from the pool, and things like that. I was the worker. I ran the place. But I can see where this would kick in. And so he and I split, and I thought my career was over. And shortly after we split, maybe 1 year after we split, 2 years after we split, he died. Passed away.
You said what? He died?
He died. He passed away. He died at 42 years old. I was 30.
My God.
I threw his wake in New York. It was very difficult. And then trickle down from that was that he and I had split the company. We had articles of separation. We each had a lawyer. We had a accountant. We had a banker, all in the room. We signed, initialed, signed, initialed, signed, initialed. Right, 13 pages of the articles of separation. A couple years later, I haven't seen him in years. He dies. I throw his wake, and I got contacted by our old bank, and he said, "Well, when Mr. Grand passed, oh, it was a new company name. He changed the company name to Treehouse Animation and everything." And he said, "Well, Treehouse Animation has a outstanding line of credit drawn upon it, like $88,000 plus interest and unpaid. It was like 170,000, maybe it was $120,000." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, we've been separated for years. I haven't seen Royce is dead. I haven't seen him in years. I never borrowed this money. I had my articles of separation, and we assessed all our debt, all our assets, and we split it all up. I'm done. Got the wrong number." And they said, "Yeah, we know you never borrowed it." They said, "But there was a 14th page that wasn't signed and nullified through human error."
What?
And they said, you have 13 signed pages, but we have a 14th, and it was never nullified in writing. And they said, "So we can go after this money wherever we can." And they came after me for 3.5 years. And I settled
What?
for 25 grand plus 36 grand in legal fees for 3 years. It almost killed me.
My God.
So I've had hardship.
That's
So
insane. Oh, there was a 14th page.
it was the personal guarantee. It was the most important one.
This just sounds like some book is written, some short story. The title is The 14th Page.
Yes. Can I tell you my conspiracy theory on this?
Okay.
Because the bank was in the room, the banker, our banker who we knew and that Royce continued to work with until he died, was in the room passing all that stuff around. I cannot prove this. This is just my gut feeling, but I suspect that was withheld
Deliberately.
for the bank's interests should anything ever go south, unless they were asked for it, that they didn't offer it up and put it on the table to be nullified. That if you ask, "Oh yeah, no, of course, here it is," but if you didn't ask for it, because it was the only page that needed to be
The lie of omission.
nullified in advance. Yes, a lie of omission, exactly. Now I can't prove that, but I suspect that's their order of operation, to withhold until asked. Because why wouldn't they?
That's, ethics.
No, this was a North Fork Bank, which got bought by Capital One. Capital One's a global conglomerate. They don't have ethics. They even said, "We know you didn't borrow the money, but we are within our legal right to recoup our money by any means, any paper trail we're able to find." And right now, you're the paper trail.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I know. Like, I don't know.
There's
all
more
the
to that story, but I know there's being recorded.
Yeah. Well, we want to keep things moving. We want to keep things moving here, and
Plus, I don't want to go to jail. It's felonies.
Yeah. Right. So in terms of because this is the thing, a lot of the content I put out there and the podcast stuff, it's for people to tune in and kind of get sort of not advice and help and tips all the time, but an idea of how, you were saying earlier, how do I get from here to there?
Yeah. Exactly.
So how if somebody came and asked you, or a student came and asked you, "John, how do I start my own company and get started?" And because
they do. I mean, this is a common question that everyone asks.
Yeah. I mean, because this is one of those things where I'm it's interesting for me to hear a lot of your background, because you sound very hands-on and craftsman-like. But my experience with you and working with you is you're more of the managerial class, because you're the ones on the phone all the time. You're the one on the phone all the time with the clients and the arrangements and the contracts that's what I think of you.
And I went to art school, so I have no formal training in any of that whatsoever. And it's my weakest trait. And so I've been asked many times, clients and friends and colleagues, they've always said, "Why don't you just hire a producer and then you can design all day, every day?" I said, "Here's the thing. I can't afford a high-end producer, right? I mean, I can't afford a executive creative producer, right? It would have to be someone mid to junior level, right? One mistake with one estimate or one whatever, and I'm out of business." Whereas I've been doing the design for so long and teaching for so long that I can work with designers and get what I need from them. I know how to speak it. I know how to do it. I know how to buffer for them. So for me to art direct artist is easier for me than to do the design and have somebody else handle the business because I'm completely exposed and vulnerable if somebody else is managing the business side of it. No, again, it's the risk averse. I end up paying more to work with talented artists. I could save money if I did it the other way,
Right.
but the money isn't as important as long-term success. And
That makes
that's just
sense.
where I've
That actually
always,
makes sense when you put it like that.
now, if I grew much, much bigger, if I had 15 artists and 2 floors and what, yeah, sure, get producers, you know what I mean? But it's not that big. It's
Yeah.
billing
Well,
estimates.
let's bring it up to sort of current day. So, because we used to have a bunch of people, like we had,
Mm-hmm.
Liz and Kamar
8.
and Charles, and we were all
Mm-hmm.
gathered in there.
Misuk. Mm-hmm.
Misuk, yeah, I miss Misuk.
Mm-hmm.
And but now it's like you're working from home, kind of on your own outside of the city.
COVID
So,
did this. This is
okay,
all COVID. So even I just closed the main brick and mortar office, I began to migrate out of it last October, but basically a year ago, and then moved out in February. So this is a new development. But Nick, and stuff like that. We were working. We broke for Christmas, um, last year, and then for whatever reason, the faucet turned off, and it got really, really slow. Come January, Nick over the holidays had gotten COVID, so he had gotten sick, so he got better, but like everybody was weirded out. I have very long COVID symptoms. It really did a number on me. So it was I had moved upstate. I'm doing this really long commute, and all this stuff, and then like the artists weren't coming back. The artists were all working from home. So I'm like, well, what am I doing 2 hour commutes and sitting in the office alone? You know what I mean? So I shut it down. This is the brave new world.
yeah, I think this is probably a pretty common occurrence in a lot of different people's companies and industries. So it's like everybody has been kind of adapting to this since
I,
in the last
I
couple of
kept the
years.
office longer than anybody I knew. And I did it for the clients, but then all my clients started asking, God, John, why are you still have the brick and mortar,
Yeah.
Once my
It bec-
clients said, go
yeah.
ahead and get rid of it, then I got
Yeah.
rid of it.
Right. It's become the new norm,
Yeah.
for better or worse. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I prefer it the other way. Don't get me wrong. But, you save a little bit of money on the real estate and stuff. I'm a social person. I tell you what it's really been bad for are students, interns, and entry-level workers. People who need that job right out of college, junior level designers coming in. Can't do that remotely. Can't somebody who needs that much teaching and hand-holding to get them up to speed.
yeah, like to
You
learn
can't.
on the job, you
Yes.
miss out on that community feeling. Yeah.
Well, and I can't hire them as the owner of String Theory. I can't really bring in an intern. I can't, and I used to have a pipeline of interns. I can't really
Yeah.
take a chance on a low paid, a high ceiling, high floor, entry level artist. And they've really suffered. They're dying.
Yeah.
They're dying for work. They can't get jobs anywhere because unless you're hired to be the job, you're not,
Yeah.
can't do it.
Well, that's very true. It gets me wondering and thinking about the pros and cons because like, what are those kids going to do? They have to figure out some kind of pivot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost opened up maybe like other opportunities of sort of self-starting and entrepreneurialism. It's like, I mean,
Well,
sort of like,
and location becomes not important now. So you can apply in LA,
right.
you can apply in England. It doesn't matter. The only thing you have fighting against you is the time zone, you know? So that
Well,
helps.
I mean, not even applying for a job at a
Yeah.
place. I mean,
There are no jobs at places anymore. This is for
yeah, this is what I'm
us.
saying.
This is
This
just
is
to do it is to do it.
right. So that's what I'm saying is like, I'm just sitting here throwing this out there and kind of wondering, like you and I are already fairly established, but even me, like, cause I know, like you said, work has dried up a lot in the last couple of years. And as a result, like it's dried up for me as well. Like I left New
Yeah,
York, I came to Philly,
sure.
and, I got comfortable just working with you on stuff in New York, and we still worked remotely as we do
Mm-hmm.
now, but
Yeah.
it's gotten slower and slower, and the projects have
Mm-hmm.
gotten smaller and smaller. So I've had to pivot, just like your interns, like the younger students have had to figure
Mm-hmm.
out something else out.
Yeah.
And so I feel like now, and again, this is where I kind of go back to my thought level view as being a very sort of old school industry kind of guy. Whereas me, I'm like, Well, I'm not even self-taught, and I didn't have peers in the community, and I didn't have Paul Rand as my teacher and all this stuff. So I'm like, I'm always used to kind of scrapping around and figuring out an
Yeah.
alternative way with that. So that's why I'm like, okay, well, I'm starting this podcast and this brand,
Yeah.
and I'm teaching. Like we're both
Yeah.
teachers now, but I'm just teaching like directly, like me to the student online.
Yeah.
So this is like a whole other thing of like, you can call it
It's a
content
tent pole.
creator or
I view these things as tent poles, right? So even in my career, just doing design, I still have tent poles, right? We did Broadway, we had broadcast, we had Sony Music, we
are you
had
saying
commercials,
tadpoles like a frog?
tent poles, no, tent poles.
Tent poles. Okay.
Yeah, poles that hold up the
Okay.
tent so that any one can go down and the tent still stands, So like I've always been an advocate for having broad, diverse tent poles, different types of clientele and or jobs, teaching, podcasting, things like that have different economic biorhythms. So like if all your clients are all ad agencies, for example, you may think you're diversified against different agencies, but you're not because if advertising in general takes a hit,
Yeah.
whatever. So having Broadway worked sort of on a different biorhythm than advertising. Music videos and Sony Music worked on a different biorhythm. They had different busy times of the year and things. So trying to offset some of that, live events and corporate booths and installations and stuff like that, they have a different calendar biorhythm. So that's what I always recommend to different artists is try and not just diversify what type of work, but when those industries are busy or not, or where they're vulnerable against new technology, like Sony Music took a hit because music downloading, nobody's buying music. So if you weren't reading those tea leaves, you were probably shit out of luck. You know what I mean? I saw that coming a mile
Yeah,
away.
it's a strange landscape
Mm-hmm.
because part of it is 2020 and the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and all that, and part of it
Mm-hmm.
is AI, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. I don't want to say it's like all bad, but it's definitely more
It's not good.
complicated. It's more
Yeah.
complicated in the
Yeah.
sense of there's not just like a path that you just go to school, you get a job, you work hard. It's like that path has been kind of obliterated in a lot of industries and
and
levels
and
and
and not in any one step. There's been like four giant nuclear warheads that have gone off um since 9/11 that have really just clipped everybody at the knees each time. And so being leaner, being multitasking, taking lots of different types of work, making sure that you do a good enough job that you get repeat business. So like repeat business is really important. That people love working with you, that you made them look so good that they have to work with you again, because they'll lose their job if their work starts looking crappy again after, you know what I mean? Making
right.
yourself indispensable in that way. That's what I sort of tell my students. And then it's like, if you literally can't, look, knock on wood, this year, 2024 has been very, very, very busy. Thank God. But 2023, for one quarter, for whatever reason, from January to through March or April, I couldn't buy a job. I didn't have two jobs to rub together. Like it was it was shocking. In 20 some years, and like past COVID, it had nothing to do with COVID. I don't know what happened, but it happened and it happened bad. And the only reason I bring that up is just, I mean, talk about something that would like make you want to tap out and quit. I just kind of like was asking around. Everybody I know was slow during that period. So it wasn't a reflection of me. And so then when I tell my students and whatever, even myself, like I think, okay, well, start working with like independent musicians. If they don't have a lot of money, it's not going to keep you fed, that's for sure. But it'll keep you busy on a slow month and it gives you something you can share. Students who don't have access to their first jobs, as they're fleshing out their portfolio, the last thing I advise people to do is to make some sort of short film thesis. Like, I'd rather see 10-second blips than 100-second film. You know what I mean? I mean, I guess it depends on what you're applying for, but I just think shorter, brighter, faster, and different. So if you look at my website, it was Tide, a cell phone, and a sneaker, and a music band, and a corporate logo. You know what I mean? Diverse, 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 and maybe an indie film. And then if you really have nothing to do, there's indie filmmakers who are talented and smart and have something really good that's going to go to festivals, but they don't have the money. They literally don't have the money for identity and posters and all. So you're sitting there idle. Help someone else. And not just anybody, because once you turn the sign over
Well,
free work,
you'd
you'll be mobbed.
think that if there's a lot of like kids out of college or whatever, whether they went to design school or not,
Mm-hmm.
you'd think there's probably somebody who has a pretty good sense of marketing. I mean, kids nowadays, come on, like they know social media like
Yes.
inside and out. They grew up with it. So like, but you'd think you'd be able to get somebody who could draw pretty well and do Photoshop pretty well and animate pretty well and maybe a good writer and a good social media person. Even if all of them can't get a job or a good job,
But they have skills.
they could
marketable
still come.
skills.
They could still come together
I
themselves.
agree. Now, I'm going to say something that I did not want to sound like the grumpy old man. I don't want to sound like, the old man yells at cloud, right? I'm just saying, from teaching from 2.5 decades, I see an absolute change in proficiency, computer proficiency, computer literacy. And you're talking about people who've never known a life without a computer, right? So how could they not be bleeding edge computer proficient? I'm telling you.
How could the younger generation not be proficient?
I'm telling you. And it took me about a year to figure this out. I couldn't understand. I had 2 semesters in a row where my students didn't know how to like drag something into the trash and empty it. Right? They didn't know how to rename a PDF. I mean
What?
computer proficiency. I don't mean After Effects knowledge. I mean like computer proficiency
These
at
are students at
college
Cooper
level.
Union.
These are junior and seniors, mostly juniors at Cooper Union. And it dawned on me, everybody's on a tablet. Everybody's on a phone. This generation don't have computers, or maybe they have a laptop, or they're doing everything with their tip of their finger on the trackpad. I'm like, guys, you need a 3-button mouse with a scroll wheel. You need 2 monitors. You need
Wow.
And when I explain to them about
I've never thought of using a computer like a Mac as a niche thing. That blows my mind.
Yeah, you need to meet more 19-year-olds. No, I'm serious.
Wow.
I was agog. I couldn't believe it. And you have to understand, I thought I was failing. I kept thinking, why? This can't be me. It can't just be like old person John. Like, what's wrong with the kids? And when I figured it out, I'm like, oh my God, they're only using Surface Pros and iPad Pros and
iPads.
things. They're using Procreate. And I'm like, guys, look, Procreate's wonderful. I'm not saying don't use it. This is a great tool. But you're going into an industry where you need to share files, where you need to cross
Yeah.
collaborate. You're not the only designer. You're not the writer, creator, director, and executor. You're part of
Wow.
a machine.
There's a couple YouTubers I follow, and some
Yeah.
of them they swear by the iPad, and they make all these videos about they have a keyboard attached to it, and here's what you can do with Apple files, and I scratch my head every time I watch it because I'm like, why
It's a long way to go.
why are you trying to make that work? Like, just
You're taking the long way. Yeah, exactly.
at least just get a MacBook, at least,
Exactly.
but like but I am sort of a traditionalist in this sense of like, I'm very much, but it fits. I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody. I like to just plunk down at home or my office or whatever. 2 monitors. I have 3 monitors, my setup over here. So like, it's like, I want a lot of space. I want a lot of, because I'm doing a lot, I'm managing a lot. I need the space. I'm like,
No, college kids don't have that luxury. They don't have the real estate. And post
Well,
COVID and everything's remote. A lot of people
yeah,
are in their parents' basements. They're in a
yeah,
closet. Like, I get it. I get it. You don't have double monitors, but you need a mouse. You need proficiency.
yeah.
And I told them a couple things. I said, listen, if you're going to get a junior level job at I'm not going to name any names, but one of my previous teachers is a very famous designer, certainly older than me, a woman, and has an amazing design studio for decades, award winning. And so when she hires people straight out of my class, I send them right to her. She hires them. And 50% of what she's hiring that person for is their speedy computer proficiency, because she doesn't have that, because she's past that. So she wants to be able to sit, work with you, the young designer, and she's going to point and say this and the click and the drag and the do and the whatever. That's the role you're hiring for, you know? And I'm like, guys, if you don't You guys need to learn the computer. At your age, you are
Yeah.
expected to have computer proficiency off the charts. The old people with the white beards hiring you are hiring you for your proficiency, not
This
for
is
your
real.
art direction.
I've honestly
You know?
never heard of this. It makes sense what you're saying, but I'm like, it's like there's this weird curve where it's like the people who are really old are not tech savvy at all. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's us in the sweet part of
Right.
the curve for the
Right.
generation before and after us.
Right.
And then there's the other part of the curve, the kids coming up, where it's like they're on a low end of the curve, like the old fogies, but
I
for
couldn't
completely
believe it.
different reasons. But it's like,
Yes.
that's really strange.
A lot of people older than me, poop on the younger kids. They say, oh, they're unmotivated. This and that. That's a whole other argument. We're not even
Well,
getting
yeah,
into
that's
any of
another,
that.
yeah.
Right. Like whether or not somebody's hardworking or not, or what that even means to a different generation, what hardworking means to someone our age versus their, I'm not even going to get into that. All I'm saying is there's a million people online chanting about that. I'm not even saying that's it. I'm telling you, because I couldn't put two and two together. It took me a while. I was terrified to even ask. It's like, how do I even broach the subject? And then I had to start like, okay, guys, we have to shut the door, we turn off the lights, put the projector on. And I had to make sure I had to bring everybody up computer proficiency level. Like Photoshop layers, alpha channel transparency, you know what I mean? Like saving versions, right? Hierarchy of where you're saving your files to, folder systems, things like that. I'm telling you. And this wasn't like one kid who was struggling. This was a
Yeah, no, this
fleet
is
of them,
right.
2 semesters in a row. Now the only thing is that they were all post COVID. So they're all post lockdown college kids, and maybe they never got that in those early years. Maybe they're stunted. I tried my best to help make up that.
Well,
Weird,
2020
right?
did a lot of
Isn't it weird?
stunting all around, but I don't think
Yeah.
this issue is that specifically. But
Right.
that's really something, though.
Isn't it?
It's funny how it's like, have you ever heard, like, I don't know if this is a thing, but you ever feel like sort of the reverse imposter syndrome,
Yes.
where in reality, you actually know a lot, but you don't think about it. You don't even give yourself credit for it. But I'm like I would never list on my resume,
It's taken for granted.
yeah, I'm great at file organization and layer management and keeping my
We should
Photoshop
exude
files.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I just naturally do all those things. I
And
would
that's what
never have
comes with being
thought
a
about it
professional.
as something to brag about.
Now,
But you have this
okay,
whole
so,
fleet of people who don't even know how to do that. So
well, okay, so I just had this conversation just last week with a friend of mine, not in the industry. She's a nurse. And she was asking because my accountant, her like niece, just graduated from design, and Linda, my accountant, so she had asked, "Hey, would you mind talking to her and going through her portfolio?" I said, "Oh, absolutely." And so when I was sharing this with just my friend, I was sharing her resume and everything. She said, "Wow, look at all her skills. She has all these computer skills and whatever." And I'm like, "No, no, no." I was like, the only people that put that on their resume are people coming right out of school, and that's so they can get hired at these fancy design studios where you're youth. You know what I mean? You're the kid. So you need to say, no, no, I know all this stuff. You can put me in to do this stuff. Once you're our age, no,
like
just like
what kind
once
of
you
things? Like what are those things you're talking about that you
the
listed?
apps, fluent in Adobe suites, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
Word, Excel, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Like people your
Like
and my age,
we wouldn't write Word or Excel or anything just because
no, or
it's
Adobe
so obvious to
proficiency.
just typing and organizing files. It's like,
Right. You and I are at a level now where we also don't need to say where we went to school. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Nobody's
it's
looking
really
for our
just about your
diploma.
portfolio, your reel. That's it.
Yeah, your portfolio real, who you know, how you've worked, if people vouch for you, isn't it? I feel bad that this is going to the podcast because I'm sure, whatever, but it was shocking.
No, this is an unexpected turn. Like I didn't. This is a tangent that I didn't expect, but it's interesting to me.
Yeah,
I
but it kind
wonder
of
how
makes
many
sense
people
though
are
when you look
aware
out
of
there now.
this. Yeah, I wasn't aware of this. So
No. And maybe it's just this particular group and this particular area. It could very well be, but it seemed endemic, right? It seems like something in the
yeah,
and I think it's because of the phones. I think because everybody's on
yeah,
touch
yeah.
tablets.
No, it's as bizarre as it sounds. When I stop and think about it, it does make sense that
Hmm.
this would happen.
Yeah.
I I never thought of this as even being a thing, but wow.
So that's a lot of what I advocate to younger people trying to come out and get in. It's like, shoot for, what really, I can see the light bulbs over their eyes. I can see their eyes open up when I describe it in this way. I was like, listen, we're not going to name names here, but you know who I'm talking about within our office and stuff like that. I was like, listen, you have entry level people, who, are going to make a couple $100 a day, and that's how they're getting started. And that's the entry level to start. And then you have really, really talented people who know their shit, and they're making $800 to $1,000 a day. What's the difference between those two? Are they better or better designers? Maybe, yeah, certainly more experienced, but not necessarily better capital G, capital D graphic design. What's the price difference? It's like, if you can get your work done in 2 days, then you can bill that much money. If it takes you 7 days to do the same job, you're getting the lower money. And even if it's not so literal as that, it might just be, hey, I have $5,000 for this job all in. So then it's on you. If you can get it done in 5 days,
Right.
you've made $1,000 a day. If it takes you 15 days, you've just made $300 a day.
Right.
They all went, all of them. They went. I was like, that's why you need to be fast. I was like, besides deadlines and whatever, I was like, your profitability, your ability to take a second job, your ability to multitask is your proficiency and your skill.
Yeah. And it goes beyond just doing client work and billing.
Oh, yeah.
Because
just your daily use.
Yeah. Like
your time is money.
Yeah, exactly. For somebody like myself, where I'm like, if I'm not on a billable project and I'm just working on this podcast and preparing the graphics for my next video and writing my script and promoting it on social media, like all of that is stuff that is taking me time that is valuable, but I'm not getting paid for it. So the faster I get it done so that it results in me getting paid by having, a monetized channel and all these things. So it's kind of like, no matter what proficiency, speed, expediency, speed is of the utmost importance. Exactly.
Because I tell them, I was like, listen, you can't just shit out 15 days of work in 5 days because they have to be happy. They have to come back. Right. But when you're good enough, and I was like, and listen, you guys are entry-level students. You're not, the first thing you do isn't going to be Masterpiece. It's fine. No one's expecting that of you. That's not the role someone's hiring you for. They're going to know for the cost savings of hiring you. They're going to know that the give and take of that is going to take you longer and that it's going to probably take some more revisions and plussing it up and improvements, right? That's normal. I was like, then you get to somebody like Jay or John, where our revision processes are much less, than somebody entry level, because the first thing out of your fingers is ready for broadcast. Now, whether or not they want that or not and want to make changes, that's on them.
Yeah, it's funny because the biggest frustration for me at this point in our careers or my career is that like I can knock it out, whatever it is, very quickly and beautifully.
Right.
The frustrating part for me is when clients don't even know what they want. And it's like they end up wasting my time or different redo because I'm like, they just don't know what they want.
There's a meme with little chanting like fighter soldiers, like stick figures. And it said, it says, what do we want? We don't know. When do we want it? Now.
If I can find that meme, I'm putting it in this right here because I'm like, or send it to me if you find it because I'm like,
you know what I mean, right?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. This is actually a great moment to segue into our big topic of the day here, into AI, because it's all about speed and efficiency, but at the same time, quality suffers a lot, and there is often lack of control over AI results and things. Or if you're doing straight up like research with ChatGPT, you don't even know that the stuff it's giving you is factually true.
Okay,
so there's a lot of.
I don't like I love Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time. It's how I stay in touch with my family and I post pictures. I'm active on Facebook, and everything on Facebook has like if there's an article. Okay, I'm from Baltimore, I like the Baltimore Ravens. And I saw that they had signed an older Chicago Bears player, Eddie Jackson. And I didn't really know anything about Eddie Jackson. I know he was a Pro Bowler several years ago. I know he's past his prime. I came up with a little article. I said, Eddie Jackson. And I almost clicked the article to read it because I would have, BaltimoreRavens.com. But like, just for the hell of it, it had all these little meta questions under it. And just for fun, it said, where was Eddie Jackson drafted? And I said, let me just click the AI. Let's just see. And I clicked that. And it said he was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. And it was patently incorrect. He was drafted by the Chicago Bears. He just got signed to the Ravens as an old man. And that was the first time I had clicked the meta question. The first time. That was like the litmus test. And I went, well, I know that
That
that's patently incorrect.
yeah, and that's
Now,
a
if I didn't,
softball question.
and if I didn't know that, I would have just believed that to be. And what if that was politics? What if this was important? It
Yeah,
was
if
my
it can't
first
even
one. This isn't
if
one
it
out of
can't
10. This
if
was
it
one out
can't
of
get
one.
this yeah, if it can't get the small stuff right, how can you trust it for the big stuff? That's the point. Right, so we're getting into AI, which is sort of our big topic of the day after some industry talk and sort of how you got to be where you're at today. You and I have been throwing little bits of AI back and forth with each other, little opinions for several weeks and months here. But this is our opportunity to really dive in deep and like really get into it. So you were just sharing a good quote a minute ago before we started recording. And why don't you share that quote with us and then your thoughts on it, and then I can chime in with my thoughts on it, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So this was a retweet where they had said, rarely have I seen AI described so succinctly. So this would be at Jeffowski wrote, the underlying purpose of AI is to allow wealth to access skill while removing from the skilled the ability to access wealth. I found that very kind of telling. And I sort of equate this to the world of crypto and crypto bros, and there's just this race for the haves to get as much as they can without needing anything else. And so one thing creatives have had since the time of caves, have been to make things. Imagine living your life with no art, no music, no design, no animation, no dance, no poetry, no nothing. And that's part of the human condition. And so people with money just see that as the cost, and if they can eliminate that cost and still keep their sales, they will. But it's interesting because you would think these tools would also benefit all artists to be able to make art easily, better, blah, blah, blah. But money doesn't work that way. Money doesn't travel in that direction. The people without AI isn't going to help them get, but the people with AI will help circumvent having to hire people. That's just how I believe human behavior works under late stage capitalism that we're in. So I'm not
Yeah.
anti-AI. I mean, AI is wonderful for detecting breast cancer, for decoding the scrolls that they found, this long lost language, and then AI was used to decode it after so many years of study. I mean, it's amazing. It can benefit our world in many, many, many ways. I just don't want it to write our poems. I don't want it to I don't want it to create our art. And I really don't want it to replace students' analysis of reading books and writing their thoughts and essays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can go in terms of like the overarching
Mm-hmm.
ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
But let's stick, or I'll just respond specifically to the
Yeah,
quote about the wealth transfer
sure.
sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
idea. I definitely think there's some truth to that. But I also think of, see, here's the thing. It's almost like, look at this beautiful rug for everybody to walk on now. And it's like, yeah, everybody, it's a democratized sort of, we can all enjoy this lush rug. Where you going? You know where I'm going with the metaphor here, but I feel like in the end, though, I feel like the rug is going to be pulled out from underneath all of us who are on it, like
Well, that's the
enjoying the
other.
temporary pleasures and
Yeah.
simplicities of it now.
There's a cliff. There's the possibility of a cliff, and we're all walking. It's fine. To not sound like a Luddite. Like I feel like I have to keep saying this over and over, but like we heard very similar things in the design community, in the art world, for graphic design. We heard this with the Macintosh. My teachers were against the Macintosh, that this was my reply to them was that this was the democratization of graphic
Yeah,
design.
that's what
This
I
isn't going to
say.
allow anybody
I
to do
say
it.
that a lot too about AI.
And it is a tool. So I'm not saying to get rid of AI or that it has no place in this world, but some of my teachers' arguments about what they didn't like about the Macintosh weren't wrong. It came with 12 fonts, it was limited in its color, whatever. Why would you do that? You have photography, you have artists, whatever. They weren't wrong. What they were wrong about was that cream rises and that artists would start using it. Like they're as a student, they wanted to make sure that we weren't just making what the computer allowed us to make, right? I mean, I guess my argument to that has always been, well, we're always limited by what we are able to make.
Yeah.
Our skills are our tools. We don't shoot for the moon knowing full well we'll never get there. We still try and make things that we can achieve.
Yeah, like I look at it as like when I first started out in graphic design, just I was literally studying engineering at Northwestern. And in my free time, I learned Photoshop on my own from classroom in a book. Like that's how I learned. And I remember
Cheers,
I was a PC guy then. I didn't even have a Mac until I didn't get to start using a Mac until on the job in the early 2000s. But like there were limitations with the processing power. And I started out, my graphic design career officially started out where I was in college, and I did a couple poster designs for Northwestern like theater groups. So like, and I was doing that like in Photoshop and in Illustrator, and it was like, it might have even just been Photoshop because I think
It
I
took
didn't
19
even
minutes
own.
to open the file.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. I still remember it like to a T, like to do a radial blur. Okay. And I was trying to do like a print design thing. I did a radial blur and it was like, all right, time to leave the room and
Right. Took 7
find
minutes
something
to
else to
calculate,
do. And
but then it was too much and you'd have to do it again.
yeah. And then exactly. So I'm like, you run out of time and you're like, you know what? And that's good enough. We'll just give it to him like this. And but the point is, because of those limits, it did limit my creativity in the sense of, well, I just can't get it to do what I want it to do.
I'm
and
a
I
very
only have
strong
so much
advocate for
time and
limits.
and I had a deadline, and so you just got to, it's like, okay.
Deadline,
And it was very
budget, and
frustrating.
means. Yeah.
Yeah, it was frustrating because I know I could make this beautiful poster and like all these people would see it on campus, but I was limited by the hardware.
Yeah, and that's what better tools are going to give you. That's what AI is going to be good for. Better tools, faster tools. I mean, I used to, for a 30-second commercial, standard def, I used to have to render it overnight. I mean, it would take 4 to 8 hours. And I wasn't doing anything all that elaborate. I mean, nowadays, After Effects would do it in real time. So
Yeah,
like,
and I love my Mac Studio and
yeah.
the processing that I can do, but bringing it back to AI.
Yeah, like I love After Effects. I mean, the Photoshop has AI baked into it. I love that you can extend backgrounds or remove a TV. Like that's what AI is absolutely for, to do it fast, to do it easy, to do something you're already doing anyway. But that's not generating new art and calling it yours. You know what I mean? And maybe matte painters and photo retouchers, maybe they'll disagree with me. They'll be like, no, there's an art to removing a TV. Yeah, like it's definitely going to kill. It's definitely going to kill industries. Computers killed typesetting. Computers killed offset litho and printing, right?
This is not abnormal to the sense of normal human development technology over eras, because certain jobs will get killed, but then there are new jobs.
Yes, and these do make things better, but this is different. Like what we're talking about is different, and I keep trying to put my hat on about like what my teachers were saying about the computer in the 90s and 80s.
You're comparing the parallel, like
yes, and what they were against about it is still here for the AI, but I think this is so much more. I think this is just foundationally in the base of its code, based on analysis and plagiarism. So it's fine for analysis because there's nothing innovative in analysis. There's just getting to the bottom of what's there, right? For tracking, frame blending to change speeds of video. This is analysis. This is what computers are for, in my opinion. And if a computer helps you render a tree better because you want a tree there, okay. I mean, I get it. That's the power of technology, right? But like to generate a logo out of it, like from a blank page, to generate a new mascot character, to generate, I mean, a photo of Donald Trump holding hands with Taylor Swift. You know what I mean? Like, it's just no good. No good will come of it. And it's fraudulent.
I
And
think, well, the fact that you agree with
it's plagiarist.
there are some good purposes for it. You mentioned a few.
I love that it's baked into Photoshop. I love it. Baked into Illustrator is weirder because
it is weird in Illustrator. I've tried it a couple times, and it's
because it wants to make something for you.
Yes, I'm not going to say it's good.
Entirely different.
Yeah, like
that's where I draw the line.
It's been there for a while in Illustrator, like several months, and I've tried it a couple times.
Yeah,
and I'm not even going to say it's bad because it's not bad. It's a weird feeling inside of me because it's like
because you know you're not making it.
Yeah,
Photoshop, I'm in complete control. Like when I'm cloning out trees or removing a TV off a wall and matching the shadows, I'm in control of that. I know how to do that without AI, but AI made it in the blink of an eye. That's fabulous. But like when you get the thing and you draw the little thing and then you say put a purple dragon in there, well, now all of a sudden you have a series of questions, right? Okay, well, where did you get that purple dragon from? Is it inspired by Spyro? Is it inspired by Lord of the Rings? Where did those wings come from? Where did those horns come from? How was this amalgamated? I didn't make this. This isn't from my hand. This isn't from my vision. You know what I mean? And I draw the line, you know?
I'm glad you said draw the line because I think it comes down to there is a fine line, right?
And everyone's going to have a different line.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Like for me, it's like, well, first of all, I don't like when you're talking about generating a dragon in Photoshop, we're basically talking about compositing at that point. Like if it's not just
generative, it's literally creating a dragon out of nothing. You know what I mean?
Sure, sure. But
it made a dragon.
If it's like what the distinction I'm trying to make here is you have a blank canvas and you tell it, give me a dragon on the hill, you know, breathing fire, and there's a castle in the background, right?
No, I mean my photo. Like,
no.
I have a house and a mountain.
No. I'm getting to that.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Okay.
On the one hand, there's this where it's a blank canvas. You tell it all those things I just said, and it gives it to you. And it might not fit the style, or you want it to be at sunset, or so you can tweak it. Like, did you watch the video? Did you see the video I sent today?
Yeah.
Just a brief thing about what Meta's doing now, right? And that looked more like, okay, it gave me this dragon, but I'm like, I want it to be red, make it bigger. So in a way, you're starting to sculpt it just gave you the basic pieces of it.
Yeah, it's iterative.
You know, it is iterative for sure. But then with the way the tools are heading, you can instruct it to basically do what you would have been doing with your mouse anyway.
Yes. Now,
now you're using words to say, move it over there to the left. Actually, let's have another dragon, move it behind it. Let's have a helicopter over here.
Now, everybody has their own, and even my standards shift on this. Like this is a malleable case by case opinion that I have of this, right? So I'm not dead set in stone in any way. Like I do not question you or I using AI to good use, right? But I absolutely question.
Good is a totally subjective word, though. I mean,
yeah, of course. Yeah, but I mean, what I would define to be good use. Yeah. But I would not question your use of AI or my use of AI. I would not question that you would be using it in a deceptive way or in a plagiaristic way or in a way, you know, there's all these ways that it could be used that, that I don't.
True artists, they wouldn't use it in a plagiarizing way because they know it wouldn't give them any pride or satisfaction.
But go up one level, okay? So the producers that hire you, right? Maybe because they know you and I, and they respect what you and I do, they still wouldn't do it. But now go one tier to the left of them, and they have an account team. And these are sales bros, right? These are the convertible BMW, earpiece, sunglasses, screaming down the highway, yelling at somebody on a phone, right? You know the type.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere, right? You think they give a rat's ass wear their piece of art that comes in from whatever to go to their sales convention that's going to be up one time and it's going to sell more fucking drugs? Do you think they care about a pipeline of talent and innovation? Do you think they care about who owns the dragon and where that came from? Do you think they care that the wings came from Lord of the Rings, but the neck came from Spyro? They don't give a shit about shit because their profits are going to go up. They're going to make their quarterly and they're going to get their bonus and fuck all. And that's who I see in this industry overwhelmingly. So when I pair that knowledge with this tool, I go, no, right? Like I don't go, oh no, that you're doing amazing things with AI. But do you remember Eric Winkowski? He worked at String Theory. He was my ex-student. Eric was on the bleeding edge years ago of using AI to video, and he's an artist, a capital A, like a fine artist with animation. You know, his stuff's like the MoMA and all. That guy is using smart uses of AI to do amazing eye-popping things, right? I have no worry whatsoever that people like that will use these tools in fabulous ways. And maybe this is like my old teachers looking back at me and you and going, well, hell, maybe I was a little wrong about the computer because look what these guys are doing, right? We're bringing art to it. I'm just so skeptical of the commerce of it.
Yeah.
Because I see so many shitheads.
Yeah.
And like they're the ones that are going to benefit from this, not you or I.
Well, I think it's possible that a lot of people will benefit from it, not just the douchebag bros.
Yeah. But the clients, everybody upward of them, everybody upward is going to benefit, and everybody downward from them is not. You and I are not in that scenario. You understand?
I don't know. Like I don't know yet. It's a valid point what you're saying, and I fear that.
Nobody knows. I'm just speculating based on the. I'm a people person, right? I'm pretty good at reading the human psyche here, and I go, I cringe. Let me throw something else out your way, because this is with a pharma team that I work with a lot. Really nice people, great to work with. I'm sure they have those types of people farther up, but I'm buffered from them, right? Really great group of people. Love working with String Theory. We do a lot of work for them. Their creative director sent me this thing where they had a series of patient portraits, black and white, very beautifully shot, artfully shot, stills of, older people, black and white, gray hair, but looking very modelly, very well lit, professionally shot. And they were doing an installation, like a pop-up, probably a trade booth or something, where they were going to put those pictures in frames, and they'd be video screens, and they wanted them to still be stills, but to just turn their heads a little bit and that their hair would blow a little bit or whatever. And AI is perfect for that. Absolutely. That's not driving the creative. They had photography. They had real things. They're just trying to magicize the video a little bit. I'm all for that. Now they raised a red flag, which I give them a lot of credit for, because they could have easily just ran with it. But they knew they were working for Pfizer or something, some global conglomerate. And they went, it's a free app that does this. I have an account. It's amazing. Technically speaking, when you read the terms of agreement, by submitting those pictures into using that free app, you are now submitting those pictures to be used in all the free app, in theory.
Like for training purposes?
Well, for anything. We don't know what. It could just be amalgamating for when it has to generate something. You're just adding to its brain catalog, right? Which you or I say, who gives a shit? Pfizer? Pfizer should give a shit, right? Pfizer needs to give a shit. They paid a lot of money for those pictures. This is for medical, so this is for those patients have been paid handsomely to talk about their erectile dysfunction or about their heart condition or whatever. You understand? Once you start using, what if their nose comes up somewhere else or their hair? Maybe no one will ever know. Maybe no one will ever see. But if you ever ask them as a patient, as a model, by the way, since we're using your likeness in here, we need full buyout and the use of the AI and blah, blah, blah. People go, wait. I'm here I had a heart attack. I'm not here for erectile dysfunction. I don't want my image used for that. You understand? So all of a sudden now, who owns what? And who has the rights to what?
This is a universal issue that doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with AI.
No,
this is a whole thing, like a little side thing, but friend of mine who was a photographer back in New York, she was like, hey, we need somebody to come in for a photo shoot. So I was like, yeah, okay, all right. So I showed up. They took some pictures of me. I don't remember what I signed or didn't sign or whatever.
You don't remember them slipping that pill in your drink either.
Yeah, right,
But you
right.
woke up naked and the pictures are in Times
Yeah,
Square like Kramer
but
in
no,
boxers, right?
dude, this is what happened. This is what happened to me. So she told me it was like an annual report or something. So it would be just like some local.
An annual
One
report
day,
from Playgirl magazine.
yeah, one day I logged on, or somebody sent it to me on Facebook, and they were like, "Dude, what are you doing?" I was on the homepage of News Corp,
Yes.
like
Yes. Did you
featured
take a
prominently
screenshot?
in the banner.
Yes.
It was me,
Right.
and I'm like, I
Do you have a
didn't
picture of
sign
this?
off on this. I didn't.
Right.
To tell you the truth, I might not have even signed anything that day. I
No,
just showed
right.
up, did my friend a favor. They took pictures of me, and not to get all further into it, maybe I'll edit this and put it in the bonus. But I lost that friendship over that because I asked her, can you take that down? Like, I don't want my
She's
face
like,
up there.
No, she's
and
not
I'm like,
that jeopardizing her client
yeah.
relationship.
So she ended up going to talk to the real photographer because she was just the assistant on that thing. And she was very angry at me for asking
putting her in this position.
Yeah. And like she's the victim here, but I'm like, I'm the one who did you a favor, and my picture was plastered over like Fox News and all those other places. And I'm like, I don't want my picture there. And I'm like,
morally opposed to this. This is
so the point is, like, it's not just an AI issue.
No, absolutely not.
This is a property and ownership and rights.
Yes, but we're
issue.
but for the past 8-10 years, we've been mired in digital ownership and rights because of music pirating and because of all this stuff, the internet, image searching. We're already engulfed in these very, very difficult to police and difficult to monetize sort of arguments. And giant companies.
Music artists sampling other musicians from 20 years
giant
ago.
Companies have been dealing with this for a long, long time. But all this pushes that straight to the forefront where there's no, most of the people using the AI, I believe, don't know that it's amalgamating from other things. They hear the words generative and they think that it's making it. And my argument is that it's not making it, it is assimilating and collaging and Frankensteining from it, right? And where it's coming, Sony had reached out to me like 2 years ago because I used to do a lot of work with them. And they said, hey, we wanted to pick your brain, about how to move forward with AI, with some of our, new artists and things like that. I said, listen, I'm all for it. It can make things faster, for new artists that don't have a lot of money, not Bruce Springsteen, but like, you need little videos, you need some type. Yeah. That's, you can make a little machine that can serve your indie bands affordably. There's a good answer in there. And they're like, well, what would you see would be the limitations going down that road? And I said, where you're sourcing from. And I said, I don't think you can use just a public chat GPT or something. I said, if Sony, with all its resources, could partner with something or could develop something on its own that would only use Sony music, Sony imagery, Sony artists, then you can be sure that the pond you're fishing from is all the fish you've stocked.
Yeah, but
right?
Even then, let's say I have a feeling, given the greedy nature of corporations, even if Sony was pulling from their own pool of assets,
they still don't own it all for any other project. You can't use Bob Dylan's stage backgrounds for an indie band. Bob Dylan's going to be mad.
My point is, I have a feeling, not a Bob Dylan, but just some minor artist that's part of the Sony, whatever.
Anybody, yeah.
I have a feeling if those individual artists' assets were sourced by Sony only and Sony bragged about it, like, oh, we're only going to use our internal database, I doubt they would pay the artists anything extra for like.
Definitely what. And that goes to this quote about the people with the money and the people without the money. I mean, no, the divide will get much bigger, right? That's the downside with this. You know what Sony did? They backed off. They said they didn't say they would never do it in the future, but they said, yeah, it's not ready yet. It's not ready for us with our rights and management because they had just been annihilated 10 years earlier by file sharing and music streaming. They have not recovered from that. And they see that they're like, oh, yeah, we have major problems. So like Marvel caught a lot of flack actually for this, for the opening of Secret Invasion or
I
Secret War or
just
whatever.
started watching that. I was wondering if the opening was AI. It looked
And
very AI.
yeah, and I don't remember the company. I don't know if it was like Imaginary Forces or something. It was a big company. It was a big design company, and they caught a lot of flack. But I came to its defense a little bit. I said, look, you hired a big design studio who did amazing design. It was clearly art directed, right?
It kind of, because
Um,
as I watched, this was literally like
and
3 days ago. As I
uh,
watched it, I was like,
yeah,
"Is this
there's
AI? It looks
it's
fake and
absolutely
AI
AI. Yeah, yeah.
generated." But then I thought, but it kind of fits with what's
That's
going on because
Thank you. Right.
they're shapeshifters and they
Yes.
can
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. So it was a smart idea to use a cutting edge tool to already visualize an established art direction, right? And I'm fine with that. That's glorious. Like, what a use of a cool tool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all for that. The black and white portraits animated with the hair, I'm all for that. What a cool tool to use to existing creative. You're not replacing the creative direction in any way. You're bringing something to life in a really interesting and novel way. So I'm not anti AI, but danger, Will Robinson, danger. I'm raising the flag of that it's democratized, it's given to everybody, and the people with power as they do it. Look, how many times have you and I have been in meetings where somebody's nephew knows Photoshop and they've like trumped our work to go or somebody's wife or cousin, oh, they're an artist. I'm gonna check with them. And you go, we're already on version 9, but it's that times a gazillion, trillion, bazillion, and it'll eat its own self. So my hope would be, I always say cream rises, right? Cream rises. I don't fear it in the sense that I know what I offer and I know what I do. But like Jason, my 3D artist colleague, he's terrified of it because like, yeah, he's not art directing all this stuff. Yeah, he's a technical creative director with that kind of stuff, but a lot of 3D just has to just be fucking modeled. It just has to be textured. It just has to be lit. There's just brute labor. And that's going to skip him, you know?
Yeah, I mean 3D in itself is an interesting area because there's a lot of other 3D tools that have been coming out that aren't necessarily AI, but they're not as maybe super powered, but I could achieve a lot of good results with some of these other upcoming. So as that sort of gets democratized and as the level of quality goes up, that in itself could about your friend Jason and 3D and all this stuff is that
Yeah.
there's always reason to be sort of afraid in the sense of these other Photoshop replacements. Like now, literally anybody can be good enough at Photoshop. It's like, oh, okay, so the fact that I'm a Photoshop expert and After Effects expert doesn't mean as much anymore
Sure.
because it's being democratized. So there's that element of it.
And that's happened for the past 20 years. You know what I mean? Like Photoshop's gotten more accessible. So if you're low end, if you're like I hate to sound pejorative, right? I mean, this is going to sound elitist of me, but I'm going to use the term like if you're like, because there's these tiers in the ecosystem.
Yeah, you're
If
just
you're
a
on,
novice. You're just starting
yeah,
out. You're
if
not an
if
expert.
if you're a crab at the bottom of the ocean and you're just eating what trickles down, you know, having everybody around you be good at Photoshop and everything isn't helping you. You know what I mean? It's helping the shark. You know what I mean? Like, give someone like you or I plenty of people to hire.
Well, I think the question becomes: is it a zero-sum game?
No,
Is there enough work and opportunity if everybody knew Photoshop, if everybody became a creator, or is there a limited number of slots for creative people and everybody else needs to
look,
step aside and let
there's a glut in the industry, and we know this, right? There's more people coming out trying to get into it than there are jobs, and the jobs are already shrinking. Now, is AI helping grow more jobs, or is AI constricting that realm? I believe it's constricting it. You know what I mean? It's making an already existing problem, it's tightening the belt. I do not fear that people are good. There are plenty of people better at the computer than me, better than Photoshop, better designers, better everything. I have an interesting hum of general quality to general knowledge, general whatever, where again, you hope, cream rises, right? Being good at Photoshop does not make somebody a good designer, and vice versa, right? I mean, I know plenty of designers who don't animate in After Effects. Like, even me, I'm a better designer than I am an animator, let's be honest. So that's never going away. There's this other there's this other little thing in the back of this all that we're not acknowledging because we're only talking about creative. And if we were only talking about creative and poetry and plagiarism, that's one argument, right? It's like my teachers railing against the computer, right? But let's be honest, there's a whole other 99% of the world out there that AI will affect. And that's national security, and that's privacy, and that's the security of phones and passwords, and that's fake news, and how we inform a populace, and who do we trust. There's this dystopian 99% to AI that has nothing to do with our creative bullshit that you and I are talking about Photoshop and Marvel intros. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
if
yeah,
that were the worst of AI,
yeah. I mean,
we'd be
that's a
like, who
whole
gives a shit?
larger
Grow up. Yes,
discussion.
but you understand it's the same monster. So if we're having minor concerns on the creative level, if our meters are doing this, like just for a second, because it's being integrated into everything as we speak, just for a second, just take a breath, step back, pull the camera back to the full view of Earth. Now think. Yeah, okay, I'm not saying no AI, I'm saying slow the fuck down. Be judicious, you know?
It's crazy
Have
though,
a
because like I probably follow a lot of the AI developments a lot more religiously than you do. My
You
Twitter,
absolutely do. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right
my
on it.
Twitter feed is nothing but AI, but it's cool stuff. It's
It
like
is cool. It's
innovative stuff.
bleeding
It's
edge.
like,
Absolutely.
and it is moving at an exponential rate. Like literally every other week, I'm like, here's a new
Mo-
platform that's lifelike, and you can control your eyelid movement and this and that. And it's like,
most of our scientists, thinkers, philosophers, and writers are cautioning us against it. And I think we have to listen. You know what I mean? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying not have it. Anyone with any kind of brain is going, please, for the love of Christ, be careful. I'm not
see, then
sure
then
the
then the
American
question,
economy can sustain this.
sure, but whether the experts are saying it or not, it's like, what can you or I or any of us do to stop the avalanche of like,
Well, you can't stop
so
it, but you can absolutely choose to participate in it less. How you frame it and how you talk about it to others in public events, yeah, that you have a voice, and you're right. Nothing's going to stop it. I'm not saying stop it. Nothing will, but
I guess I look at it like, and maybe this is more of a individualistic, capitalistic perspective of mine,
mm,
you know, is let's compare for a second to like crypto and Bitcoin, right?
yeah,
Like we could sit here back in the early 2000s and say, "Oh, Bitcoin, it's a scam. It's ripping people off. People are at the top, whatever." Or
it is.
you could have just put $200 into it, and now you'd have like
We had
hundreds of thousands or
$300 million.
a million. Exactly.
Well, anybody can
So,
go to Vegas about numbers and put money down a number and win. I mean, I'm not saying that
well,
people didn't win some money, and knowledgeable people who built into it and built farms to mine. I'm not saying it has no point. And
well,
the destate,
to compare it with gambling though, it's not. It's just gambling. Like
no,
it was a financial investment decision. If you did a little research, I
absolutely.
didn't know about it back then, so I
Of
didn't have a
course not. But
chance.
you could have invested in 1993. You could have invested in Apple and
Sure,
done the
sure,
same
sure, sure.
thing. You know what I mean?
But if
I'm not
people,
anti-crypto.
even if you don't, like if you have a balanced portfolio, you could still do well in the long run.
Yeah,
But
oh, absolutely.
the point is if you are aware of these things, whether it's crypto or AI, and you know it's going somewhere,
Mhm.
it's not just going to disappear.
No,
And given your understanding of human nature,
just like the
I
computer,
don't,
it didn't go anywhere. It was up to
I
us to
don't,
learn how to use it.
I don't think it's slowing down. Like from what I
No,
see, it's only
no, it's not.
speeding up.
Well, yeah, no, it's
So,
definitely not slowing down. No,
so
I'm
it's
just
kind of
saying it
like
should slow down.
if,
I wish it would slow down a little bit.
yeah, but I guess I've kind of moved beyond, maybe I'm just jaded or more jaded than you in a certain way, but I'm realistic, like I'm like, if there's no slowing it down, I have to figure out my own way to keep up with the madness or whatever you want to call it. Like
That's fair.
to find a way to make it work in my life. Even if I agree with you that maybe this is bad for society overall, even if I agree, concede that,
Look,
I
to
still
to
have to figure out a way to like,
the middle school students in Baltimore City, the way out is selling drugs. That's their world. There's no way to deny it. That is their world 1000%. And to not sell drugs, other than be a star athlete, right? To not sell drugs, you have no opportunity. You have no parents, you have no money, you have no support. You are literally at the top of your earning potential in 8th grade. And so people sell drugs. It's an industry. Right? I mean, this is the job market because there is no manufacturing, there are no ports, and there are no jobs. You know, that's their real world. And I can't fault them for playing the cards that were dealt. And so your argument is, well, we're playing the cards we're dealt. The world has AI, AI is barreling forward, and I need to live in this world. So I need to do it. I agree. I agree. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't advocate for drug treatment and jobs and training for those students to maybe not have to be drug dealers. And so all I'm saying, I'm not anti-AI, and this isn't even a great analogy, but it's the only thing I came to in my head. But like, I just want to make sure that we're watering the other parts of society, that it isn't just an investor, shareholder, crypto bro, mad dash to take all the money off the table and go away, and we're all there in our underpants with no chips on the table and no game anymore. You know? Let's just try and watch out for each other and not get robbed, because it's
Yeah.
not just art. I mean, so many industries are raising their concerns over this, and some are concerned over security, ownership, licensing rights. Some are concerned that they'll be put out of work. Some are concerned that everybody all has these really loud opinions across all spectrums of American economy. And so like a smaller economy, in Argentina or something, or Iran, or they don't give a fuck. They have nothing to lose. Of course they're going to go down that road. And so, yeah, we have to compete against that. We have to play in that pool that is our world. But just be
Well,
careful.
let me say this, because remember before when I was talking about the rug being pulled out from underneath us? I've started to sort of speculate, but I've heard some other people kind of talking about this, and it kind of resonated with me. This idea of like, but this is also partially my own thought, my own idea
Yeah,
here,
of course. Yeah.
where it feels like a democratization now with AI being accessible to all. There's all these free accounts and free beta testing, and I've already been creating a lot of stuff on like AI video, just like free accounts, right? I just put a tutorial out on how to, do this and that with free accounts. It feels like that for now, but this is what I mean also when I say the rug being pulled out from everybody, is that it's very expensive. All of the processing, the GPU rendering, and all of this stuff for all of this.
The global warmingness of it.
Yeah,
You've seen all about that, I'm sure.
So hear me out.
The energy consumption.
So all of this is very expensive, and these companies are operating at a loss. Like they have
huge,
because they have all these billions of dollars of investment, they can get away with it now. And I heard that, do you follow School of Motion, like the podcast and the?
I mean, I don't not frequently, but I know of it.
Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, I watched the weekly podcast guy, and he made a really good point a few weeks ago about AI and where we fit in as motion graphic artists. And he talked about the bubble popping eventually, just like the .com, and the AI bubble is going to pop. And he said, because these companies are operating at a loss, the AI companies, but they have all this billions in funding, they can get away with it up until they run out of funding. And a lot of these companies are going to go belly up, but the ones that stay, and he posted it this way, he's like, imagine
they're going to win it all.
Sure, there'll be a few winners and a lot of losers. That's typically the way it goes. But a lot of this stuff we pay $10 a month for, or $20 a month, or they're free right now. But he posed the question, and this is what I'm bringing to you now and everybody listening, is that what if, to use Midjourney, it was $500 a month? Okay? At that point, most people, forget about the democratization at that point. Most people are not going to pay $500 or $100 a month for ChatGPT or any of this stuff. They just won't pay. Either they can't afford it or they just don't want to, or it's not
People
worth
are just
it to
doing
them,
it for frivolous fun. Yeah, there's no way to monetize it. You or I could monetize it probably.
So then what I'm getting at here is the democratization is thrown out the window at that point. Then the AI, these algorithms, their databases, they've already learned everything about human creativity, human everything, the whole wealth of knowledge of everything we've ever created. At that point, this is what I mean by the rug being pulled out from underneath you. At that point, only the elites can afford to use the amazing AI at that point.
And I'm going to go one step further.
Everybody is left out hanging
I'm
out
going
to
to go
dry.
one step further, Jay, and I know I'm sarcastic and conspiratorial, but I'm just going to say it. I'd be willing to bet that.
But I just described that is actually the plan. Yeah, it's not just a theory.
I'd be willing to bet that is the deep down hope and goal of it all. Oligarchy. And that's the way our world is trending. That's the way our politics are trending. And this fits right along with that. And so that it's impossible for me in my brain to separate all this stuff and just say, well, with Photoshop, I'm not talking about Photoshop. I'm just talking about Photoshop because that's what you and I use in our day to day. But what we're talking about of fucking Photoshop has the 99% implication everywhere else, far more important than visual effects and animation. I think that we should be careful as a nation, as an economy. Also, so let me throw out my last little grenade because I think it relates to this a little bit. And this is what I thought about in the shower last night with regards to Adobe and AI, right? Because I'm for it, like in general. I find it novel. I find it helpful, But I was trying to like put my finger on this. Like, what is this? What's going on, with Adobe? And remember, it's giant corporations. It's just a race to integrate it because they have to. Like you said, the bubble bursting, right? Everything has to be integrated into it. Otherwise, their shareholders are rejecting it in their stock falls. So you have to have an AI initiative. Adobe does this. They're a big company. So let me ask you, I don't have numbers on this. I'm just estimating. What would your estimate be? How many people in America have an Adobe subscription, right? Not the world, just America, right? Like, would you say like 1 in 20? Maybe 1 in 100? Just ballpark. I mean, I'm not going to quote you on this. This is just, let's pick 100.
Idea.
Let's say 1 in 100 just for easy math, right?
I would guess more like 1 in 500.
Yeah, it might even be 1 in 5. It might be 1 in 1,000, right? All right. It's irrelevant. But anyway, 1 in a percentage have an Adobe subscription. Adobe's corporate goals are not to make the best sports car, are not to make the most comfortable car, the fastest car, the hottest car, the cheapest car. Their only goal is to sell more cars, right? And this isn't just Adobe. This is everybody. This is every major company. They're just trying to sell more cars.
In their case, the car would be an Adobe subscription.
So let's say 1 out of 10 Americans has an Adobe subscription, right? Maybe it's 1 out of 1,000. We don't know, but 1 out of 10, right? If Adobe can get it up to 4 out of 10, right? A 30% increase in users, in installed base users, even if it cannibalized and destroyed the industry of their 10, of their 10% that had been there for 20 years and relied on them for a career. If they could get to 40 by eating their bottom 10, they will. Because they're not there to support you or I in a career. They're there to get more subscriptions. And I understand the capitalistic nature of that. But it's like, in the shower, I was kind of thinking about, I was trying to piece together how I was like, and I'm telling you, that's Adobe. And they're a design forward, reasonably progressive for artists kind of thing. Do you think Pfizer has those concerns? Do you think Mega Global WorldCom X, whatever the fuck, do you think they have any concern? I'm giving Adobe credit here by saying I actually believe Adobe still, in some shareholder and corporate level, still has some lookout for being creative, or at least looking like they're in for creatives, right?
I don't know. I've sent you a couple of videos. A lot of people all over YouTube are complaining. A lot of creatives are complaining about Adobe,
But that's a tale as old as time. Okay, we've been complaining about Adobe and Apple since they've been Adobe and Apple, right? So all I'm saying is, but I believe, I really do, that for a 40% market share increase, if it meant the destruction of our 10%, they do it in a heartbeat.
From a business point of view, purely profits, that makes sense what you just said. So it's like, why wouldn't they? If a corporation's primary interest is profit, then yeah.
And it is.
That would make sense to drop all of us creatives, and we were just a means to an end of
we were the means
them marketing their product.
And they didn't see this coming. They didn't see the AI. It wasn't their stated goal, but that's where the train went. And this is the world we live in. And we're just trying to get by with the cards we're all dealt. Well, at some point, somebody somewhere, some of us should be raising some of these questions. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I was curious to hear your thought on that because it came to me in the shower and I was just like, right,
Yeah.
right. There's
Yeah.
an
Okay.
old saying that like capitalism will sell you the rope that
That you
you
hang
use to
yourself
hang it.
with. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or hang it with. You know, capitalism will sell you the bullet that you use to shoot yourself with. I mean, it will.
Mhm.
That's left unchecked. That's what capitalism will do. So now we're talking about the most powerful set of input and processing in the history of
You know,
mankind.
it's weird, you know, because on the
It's
one hand,
people I
I'm
don't
like,
trust.
yeah, yeah. But on the one hand, I'm probably more, well, we're probably both capitalists, like in our own way. I mean, we care about our
A
bottom line and
capitalist.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
I think it sort of
I'm not
comes down to sort
anti-capitalism.
of, it sort of comes down to values
Yes.
and pride.
Well, and checks and
Like,
balances, accountability and checks and balances, because like even within the government,
yeah, checks and balances in the government for sure. We need that.
but even politicians that I don't like, you know, or whatever, I don't agree with. I still understand that our system has checks and balances to navigate that
Right.
for whatever, and I can still live my life without being a radical person who's going to blow up a bomb. You know what I mean? Because I understand, I have trust in the checks and balances of our society.
Yeah. But
But
what I was about to
capitalism
say
has
though
this.
about
Yeah.
greed, I don't see myself as a greedy person. Like I think
No.
because I came from very little means, my dad came to this country with like a suitcase and like $20.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were poor like growing up. Like it's like, you know,
Mhm.
it's like I feel like I'm the kind of person where I'm grateful for what I have. And the more success I get, I don't like here's the thing, dude. I feel like I have what I need in life, like
Okay.
materially.
Yeah.
I don't need more. Would I want more? Sure, I'd love to have
Sure.
the faster computer and do this and go on vacations and travel the world and do all. But I don't have to have it. Like if I don't have it, I'm not going to be miserable and angry. And so this is totally un-AI related, but on the subject of greed and sort of like I'm a simple person with like simple. Are you familiar with MKBHD?
No.
But he's probably the world's most famous tech YouTuber. He's got like 20 million followers or something on YouTube. Like he's huge.
Mhm.
He's interviewed with
Okay.
Bill Gates and
Sure.
Mark Zuckerberg and all. So he's like the definitive tech YouTuber. So he's made it.
Sure.
So he recently got into some trouble because he released an app. It's this like glorified wallpaper app.
Okay.
And nothing special about it, doesn't do anything. Artists have contributed their work to be like their wallpapers to be offered. And apparently it's a free app, but there's ads all over it that were driving people insane.
Mhm.
And you have to pay to get access to pretty much most all the content on there if you want to download the wallpapers. And he
Mhm.
said 50% of the money is going to the artists. Okay. So he's getting a lot of heat for this.
And I would doubt that. I would doubt that number. I bet you he's inflating that number. I'd like to see
Or
documentation.
maybe it might even be worse than what people are complaining about. But
I mean, it's like
the
Spotify and all, you know?
yeah. But like the point of it that I'm getting at is I'm like, look, I have a long way to go as a YouTuber, but I do aspire to be sort of like, you know, you aspire to be like, okay, I'll be the next Marquez Brownlee. I'll be the next
Sure.
MKBHD in my own way. I'm not going to do it the way he does it. I'm going to do it in my creative, quirky, pop culture, you know, way.
And you
But
have
if I
to.
have,
You have
if
to
I,
give.
even if I get to 200,000 subscribers or 500,000, like I'll enjoy that level of success. But again, it comes back to core values. It comes back to sort of being changed and like human greed. And I'm like, if I were in his shoes and I don't have to worry about money at that point,
You would flush that shit down, and
the
it's
app
about
would
your.
be, the app would be free and like
Or he wouldn't be. It would be associated with it. It would just flush it.
artists
Just be
would
done.
get, the artists would get probably the complete cut except for the
80%.
except for the operating costs to cover the app maintenance and all that
Mhm.
stuff. So
Yeah.
it would essentially be a nonprofit venture that
You say
people,
that.
when I'm
You say
there, am I
that.
going to get greedy all of a sudden? You know, it's like,
Well, and
I don't
remember,
know,
this
but
stuff
I don't
usually,
think that's in
well,
me.
unless you win the lottery overnight, right? Usually there's a big ramp up, and so more money, more problems, right? Like the more you earn, the more you spend, the more you need, and then next thing you know, you're risk. You've built this castle on the cliff, and you hope it doesn't rain. You can look around
Yeah.
and you can catch yourself. Your cost of living. I've been through this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very real. Yeah, you're not a greedy or selfish person or whatever, but as you build these things, and
That's
why shouldn't you
partially
get this?
why I left New York, is because it
Mhm.
was too expensive to operate there. And I'm like, I live in a, like, I went to an event last week and I met this girl who's a New Yorker. And we totally hit it off last week. And I was like, it was really cool. And I kept talking about how it was like a New York City connection, a New York City vibe.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, this is off topic, but I'm just like, not to shit on Philly completely, but the reason I'm here is not because of
Yeah.
Philly. It's just because
Right.
it's a cheaper place to live.
Yeah,
So I
of
can
course.
do what I want to do, like creatively and all this stuff. So anyway, my bigger point there, not to go out, is just like, I feel like I'm somewhat of an anomaly, but like the people who rise to the top, there's sort of an element of greed. And
Mhm.
obviously politicians, like you have to be kind of a psychopath to whoever you are on
Mhm.
left or right
Yeah,
to
yeah.
rise to the level of, like you have to have some kind of sociopathy at that point to get that level.
Well, most people are. Yeah, so most people at that level, when you're making that kind of money and doing that kind of business, you are completely, you're in it for the kill. You're in it for the blood. You don't sleep at night if you didn't get a win today. You know what I mean? Like if I didn't get one over on somebody, if I didn't walk away up compared to my neighbors, then I failed today. I mean, it's a
Fortunately,
profound
these
human
are the
behavior.
people that run the world.
Well, yeah, well, and because remember, nobody's sane and content wants to run the world. You only get megalomaniacs who become president because nobody normal wants to be president. We don't aspire to be. We don't even try.
Right.
Uh, so the only people that try are the people that want it, and they're the people you have to watch out for the most. And not just president of the United States, it's the companies.
Yeah.
And it can be rewarding and it can be good and whatever, but fundamentally they're not who I trust with a completely unchecked global
We're
technology that's being crammed everywhere.
kind of damned no
I don't
matter
trust the
what.
people.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, we're sitting here discussing the raindrops when there's Mount Olympus above us and
yeah, I mean,
Zeus and Athena are fighting. I mean, we have no control over this, but that doesn't mean we don't have a voice. It doesn't mean we can't oppose it or talk about it or debate it. I'd like to see our politicians debate about this kind of stuff. I'd like to talk about the pros and cons because there's a tremendous amount of pros to all this. But there's a tremendous amount of pros to nuclear technology too. Doesn't mean we don't have to take it really fucking careful, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, this is not, we're not going to go there. This is not that society level podcast. I have another one that was more controversial,
No,
but
you understand. But that's a facet to this that we're not talking about. I mean, it's a
sure.
facet.
I do want to throw one thing
Nation
at you though,
state.
to get your opinion on this. It's like, I loved Midjourney. I had an account for a year. I used it a lot. I created a lot of amazing stuff. But here's the thing. It's like, I think when you mentioned earlier about like Frankensteining stuff together,
Yeah.
on the other hand, like Degas is my favorite artist, right? Of all time. It's a signature style, right? But you only got to see him paint ballerinas and things of that nature. But if I want to see that style, I want to see what robots would look like or anything like by Degas.
Yeah, and that's what Eric Winkowski was doing. He was like using
do
artist
that.
styles.
Yeah, I can do that with Midjourney. In fact, I came up with all of these hybrid artist style works that they blew my mind. And I was like, this is fascinating. And I have them rotating in my wallpaper on my computer and all this stuff. So it's like, I enjoy it. Like, am I making millions of dollars profiting off of them? No. But
it's novel. It's novel.
Yeah, there's a creative joy that I have in it.
Well, absolutely. And so if that were the end all be all of it all, If everybody was making cat images and their pets, because there was a Prisma, the app that would put your photo in Illustrator styles, and sometimes it looked god awful, but sometimes it looked pretty fucking good. And it was really interesting for a while, right? And nothing wrong with that. Yeah, illustrators probably bitched and moaned for a second about that, but it didn't put illustrators out of work. You know what I mean? It's fine. It was a filter. But eh,
Really,
that's not the
you're
end of what we're
you're
talking about. That's the entry level into what we're talking about. That's not the end. That's not down
you're
the road of what we're talking about here. You know what I mean?
your beef is more who's profiting off of, like, literally the
Yes.
monetary profit.
Yes, and I mean, I foresee gigantic swaths
There is a
of
distinction there
industries
because, like,
being destroyed.
some people have a problem even with what I was doing.
Yeah.
To, like, sample different artist styles without their permission and consent. And
I look, I find it completely novel, and I love that you like it, and I love that you made it your background wallpaper. I would absolutely draw a line if a client commissioned you for illustration and you fed that back to them. I would say, Jay, oof, you know what I mean? It's not your work, it's not your style. You know, it's not for novel and entertainment purposes. It's for business, and I don't think business should get off that easily. I don't think you as a artist should get off that easily.
okay, let me ask you this: what if I sampled my own art style, which you can do
Hmm.
like in Illustrator? You can give it a reference frame
Sure.
of one of my original illustrations,
Hmm.
and then the AI generates like 50 of them.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a gray area and a sliding scale. I'm not inherently against AI for artistic
I'm
expression
just
like
trying to
that all.
pinpoint, not just for you specifically, but
No,
this is
right, and
part
I
of the
don't have like a firm answer,
debate
but
and the
I
conversation is
I'd be more
where do we draw the
I'd be more
line? It's
be more
like,
inclined if it were your art being used as the base. I'd be more inclined to be like, yeah, yeah, cool. Then you're using a tool to accentuate your art. Sure. And even as artists and designers, sometimes we get hired to mimic an art style. So I'm not even completely against the Degas analogy. You know, like I'm not morally opposed to it, but I would I would raise questions about it and make sure that it's being done in a way that I would, you know what I mean, that you agree with. It's not black or white, that's for sure. Since it's not binary.
yeah, there's a lot of gray area. It's like all it is gray
Yeah.
area now. It's just
But we're
infinite
only
gray
talking
area.
about art style and ownership. Like, my God, once you start talking about, security and
Yeah.
things like that, that's a
Once we start
whole
getting into
other realm.
Skynet, like, we're all doomed anyways with Skynet. So it's like,
We laugh, but yeah, I mean, hacking attacks and things like that. You know what I mean? I mean, that's our world. That's what's coming. So, I mean, you're right. We want the United States to be on the leading edge of this, not catching up. That's for sure. But just the race for every company right now, because it's a buzzword, you said the bubble, that every company, we've created this 4-year-old idiot that gets most things wrong, but shows promise. And every company in the world is trying to like bake it into their computer operating right now. I would just say, my goodness, just let's think about this. Slow the fuck down. I'm not saying don't do it. Adobe, Photoshop, cloning the tree. Yeah, sure. Generating brand new dragons out of it. Okay, we should ask some questions. I'm not saying
yeah.
don't. I'm just saying that are everybody sure we want to do this? Is this,
None of these
you know,
companies are going to slow down or else they're going to get left behind.
they're
So,
left behind. Absolutely. So,
yeah,
they have to, but by behaving that way because they have to, they're enabling everybody else to have to too. So it's a feedback loop, you know.
it
And
is.
so you and I talking about it on a podcast, I want to see people way smarter than me talking about this. You know what I mean? And not anti. I'm not anti anything, but I like to hear what smart people think about this
I mean, I think you and
because
I are on the same page about ultimately at the end of the day, we want human flourishing. You know,
yes,
we want
right,
creative people to be paid for their work, and not just creative people, but everybody to be paid a fair wage for what they're doing. And,
yeah,
the white picket fence, the American dream, like all of that.
right,
We want that for as many people as possible.
right, right. And I just again, I'm risk averse in general, just my personality. I'm not a big gambler, and I mean, I've gambled, but, you know, I would like to see the creators of this technology acknowledge some of the concerns and fears and questions as it's developing. But as it stands right now, it's just like the new update and the thing, and it's just out there. And then it's like, just Christ Almighty, be careful. Christ Almighty, we don't know what we don't know yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I feel like
I'm not trying to be some
whenever,
harbinger of doom. You know what I mean?
no, like
I'm
whenever they
optimistic.
do, I feel like they're just paying lip service. Like the Sam Altmans of the world, we need to put limitations on this. We need to be careful. They just say that, and
Well, they're just giving a speech
and
or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's
I need to
just
see. I need to see real people behaving this way. I mean, corporations do listen to people. I mean, they do have. Now every major corporation have DEI and inclusion initiatives and departments in their company. These are progress. These are things that we people have said this needs to fucking be. We do not want corporations to just do whatever the hell they want. They need to checks and balances. They work for us. You know what I mean? And so I love all these new tools that are coming. I find them just as eye-popping as you do. I'm constantly astounded by it. I want to make sure that they're considering what they're bringing into the world, and I'd like it to be taking their user base and people into consideration when they do it. I don't think that's too much to ask.
oh, it's
But it is right
reasonable.
now because it's a gold
Yeah.
rush. Right now, everyone's rushing with their pans, hooting and hollering for gold in them bar hills. I'm not sure that's a way to any progressive future. I don't think no good comes of that.
All right. Well,
I don't know.
this was
I
a
hate to be such
hearty.
a
This was a
downer.
hearty. No, like you said earlier, the optimist. So let's end
Yeah.
on an optimistic note here. So tell me, give me some concluding thoughts as we kind of wrap up here, like about the state of affairs, creativity, in your world, like
I fully
don't know,
believe the cream.
wherever
I
you can
fully
get a
believe
positive note. Let's end on a positive note. Go ahead.
I believe the cream rises, right? I mean, I truly believe this. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody good gets rewarded and everybody bad doesn't. I mean, good things happen to lousy artists all the time and vice versa, right? But in general, if we're talking about the mean, we're talking about the actual national mean, cream rises. Good work gets recognized. Talented people using cutting edge technology should be able to make some pretty eye-popping stuff. So the future could be bright. You know what I mean? Some of the dangers that are coming with this, the flags that I'm raising about the dangers are mostly about running wet and naked towards something we have no idea what it's about. I'm just saying, slow the fuck down. Let's just walk towards this horizon. We don't need to be greased up and running towards the burning sun. You know? Again, I want AI to solve our ecological problems. I want AI to help us build better lunar landers. I want AI to solve those kind of problems of how to use solar panels to unfurl a satellite. I don't need it to write our poems. Now, to your argument with the Degas and everything, that's novel. I mean, that's novel and creatively interesting as a fan of that artist, but not baked into Microsoft Word, not baked into the architecture of business of our country. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
is my opinion.
It's good. It's good. I'm glad we had this discussion.
Absolutely.
My next podcast guest is my buddy Ryan, and we talk about AI a lot. I guarantee you that discussion is going to be way different than this one.
I'm really curious to hear what he has to say. Now, what's his job? Where is he in the line?
Just like us.
Oh, he's a
creative
designer or artist?
Yeah, he's a creative director.
Okay.
Doesn't do as much motion graphic animation like we do, but just like a high level creative director.
But in our industry. Because I'd be curious to hear what other people in other industries feel about this. I'd be curious to hear what hedge fund world deals with this, because they love this shit. You know what I mean? Because they're already trading in nano billionths of a second now, with not just AI, but just with automation. I'd be curious to hear.
Well, I'm sure you can go fishing for those people talking about it online already if you're interested.
I know, but then I'll just never sleep. This stuff. This is the little. I
try to keep things very positive on this channel and the podcast as well. And it's like sort of staying in my lane, staying in our lane. Like just this is a podcast about creativity and productivity, so stay there. I am aware the world out there, it's a shit show and all these things going wrong, but
there's an opportunity here for you to curate a panel if you can get like 4 or 5 artists, capital A, Eric Winkowski, for example, stuff, not like design direction media, but like art, actual like art.
Painters and the illustrators, the
Yes, but there
three
are
3D
there are
artists.
artists who are using AI, and I'd be curious to hear their workflow, what their personal limitations are, where they draw their lines, and how they. Some might say, "Fuck it, it's all fair game, and I need my money, and I'm in the world." Some might say, "Well, I really respect the history of art and copyright, and I try and I'd just be curious. I mean, I'm not pro or con. I would find that informative, I think.
Cool. All right. Well, on that note, I will leave it as like, I know you're not big on like social media. You have your own private Facebook, but if there's
Yeah, Facebook.
if there's any info you want to leave with people so they can come find you online or however you
Sure.
want.
Well, Instagram. Hold on one second. I will. So funny. I can never remember. So my Instagram, I am. You know why? Because my website always has the and everything, but my Instagram doesn't. So it's String Theory NY, all one word, all lowercase. So that's I would say Facebook. You can always friend me on Facebook, but you're going to see pictures of my dog.
I was
And
actually
Instagram's
going
a
to
little bit.
talk to you a little bit about social media before, but like we're a little running out of time. But
Mhm.
you're so into Facebook. I know you use it like I don't even use Facebook at all anymore. I don't really use social media at all anymore. But
Here's my my why I like it. One, because my family's all in Maryland. So we're all entrenched. We've already been using it for many years. It's how we share our photos, how we message each other and stay in contact, right? Also, all my friends from like grade school and high school, like, yeah, some are on Instagram or whatever, but Facebook is a communication tool. And why I am not a big Twitter person and whatever is, and even Instagram, I just I find that Facebook does all of that too. Why would I limit myself to 140 words? Or Instagram, why can't I post an actual link? Why do I have to do link in bio or do it in a
yeah,
story or whatever? Whereas
yeah.
Facebook it'll let you post a link. Facebook will let you write 10 miles a copy. It'll let you write 140 characters. I don't understand the limitations. I just don't. And every time I try, I'm always going, yeah, but the thing right here doesn't have that. You do realize that, right? You're walking
Yeah.
around with handcuffs for no reason. Now, Instagram's interesting because it's so visual, right?
Yeah.
So I find that to
Yeah,
be a
it's a
distinction.
visual platform. It's not
But
really meant for people to write lots of paragraphs on Instagram. It's
right.
just
And I do not understand at all Twitter. I just don't get it, other than the speed and urgency of a news blast. But besides a headline, I do not understand arguing one sentence at a time with people. I just don't.
yeah. I guess I loved Twitter when it first came out,
Yeah.
and because for me it was a social tool. Like I always
Yeah.
looked at it as because I used to use Facebook a lot when it first came out.
Hmm.
So we're talking
Right.
2008, 2009, around there. Facebook was like my internal world, like people I already know. I would
Yeah.
bond,
Exactly.
grow closer with
Not
them.
strangers. Yeah. Strangers
Twitter
are not
was
my people.
my everybody else out there in the world. How can I meet new people? That's how I
You're
looked at it.
broadcasting out.
Yeah.
I do love that. I mean, that is what it's for. Just old. I find it so limiting. I just find, you know what it is? I
We're like
find
the
the
same
radical.
age.
No, but I mean, I'm old in spirit. Like
Yeah.
I
That's
find
what I was.
the radicalization of ideas. Twitter just inflames directions. All it does is build chasms. You know what I
That
mean? And
happens on Facebook too, though.
well, absolutely. But with Facebook, now, admittedly, I'm in a limited cone. I'm only with my family and friends, right? So. But also, if you have an important thing to say, you can actually say it. If you link to an article, you can actually link to. I mean, you can link to articles in Twitter. I don't know why I don't like Twitter. Just when it first came out, I found it really restrictive. And Instagram, the
I
fact that
actually
you can't
like
post
that because
links and
I
stuff
tend to
is asinine.
ramble. I tend to ramble, and Twitter forced me to consolidate my thoughts. It was
To
actually a really good
curate, and edit.
writing and thought curating
Hmm.
editing process for me. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
first I was like meeting all these new people in New York, like creative people, and like I
Hmm.
would tweet my little random thoughts, and it was connecting.
Yeah.
It's gone off the rails politically, all this stuff like
Yeah.
the
It's
last
a cesspool now.
so now I've only come back to it because of the AI thing.
Hmm.
It's like I'm in this little AI community now,
Yeah.
and
You can reach.
it's
Yeah.
just people sharing their stuff. I share stuff there because when I post on Facebook, it's just crickets.
Yeah.
Like, I guess you have a life action of people in your life. For me, it's like I post stuff and nobody sees it, so it's like
Also,
I don't see the point of posting on Facebook.
Also,
Anything.
I'm not getting big ideas out there. You know what I mean? I'm making quippy little snarky comments. I'm
Mm.
talking about a movie or a football game. Like I'm sharing pictures. I'm sharing memes. I use it entertainment.
Yeah.
My entertainment, not others. You know what I mean? Twitter, I'm sure, has a different role. I don't like talking to strangers. It's
No, I was curious, like just really quick, like, are you more introverted or extroverted? Because you're kind of a hard nut to crack or figure out. Like,
I am very bombastically social,
huh?
but when I'm out of juice, like I need to completely turn off. So I'm like an introverted extrovert, if you will. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of both, where I appear to be the extrovert, right? To everybody I know, everyone goes, "Oh my God, John's the life of the party" or whatever. But I could do it for about 2 hours, and then I'm exhausted, and sometimes I need to recuperate the next day, even like. So I have my downtime.
Okay, that's not.
I do hate people, though. Oh my goodness, I
Yeah, I
hate
was just
people.
about to say, like, you hate people though, don't
I
you? Like,
hate
yeah,
people.
you
Boy, do
hate
I hate
people.
people.
Yeah,
If we
yeah,
could just have a world of animals and dogs, and oh my God, I'd be so happy. But humans,
yeah.
give me a break.
Definitely love dogs way more than people. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
It's not even close.
No, not even close. It's a bazillion to one. Oh my God.
All right. On that note, people suck.
Yeah.
Dogs are awesome.
Yeah.
Let's call it a day. Great chatting with you today, John.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.